Chapter 1269. Ah! Zhou Xiaonian was caught off guard when he heard this, and he was stunned for a moment before his face flushed red, and he was at a loss for what to do. He stood up with the intention of fleeing, but he was hugged by Zhou Xiao Duo, who had been on guard since long ago. Let go of me. I won't let go. You're my wife. Why should I let go? You, Zhou Xiao Duo whispered into her ear. Our mother hasn't finished yet. The second half of her speech is that chaos is coming, and you and I, one ice and one fire, are a natural fit for dual cultivation. Moreover, this method is the best way to help us improve greatly. I don't believe it. Mom has always emphasized to me that I should keep my virginity. I'm telling the truth. Things are different now. Keeping your virginity is for the best time. I'm also a virgin, so I've kept my virginity for you. I'm going to call Mom. I don't believe you. Then call her. You'll know if it's true or not. Zhou Xiaonian blushed and held her phone. After a while, she dialed Wu Yuding's number. She was too shy to continue. Wu Yuding knew what was going on. She didn't dawdle and said directly, "That was my idea. Mom, we're not married yet. Girl, why can't you think straight? At your level of cultivation, why do you still need such a ceremony?" Yes, we do. That's not too late. It won't stop you from consummating your marriage. Besides, this is cultivation, not that kind of nonsense. Wu Yuding didn't want to be too direct, but she insisted. This is cultivation for improvement. Zhou Xiaonian felt feverish. But, now that the war is coming, even if you improve your cultivation a little, it may be of great use, let alone such a big improvement. As long as you converge fire and water, yin and yang, heaven and earth are in harmony, it will naturally make everyone's strength reach a higher level. This is determined by your cultivation method and your own aptitude. It can be said that it's a talent opportunity, not something that's trivial. So, before Wu Yuding finished, Zhou Xiaonian bit her lip and said shyly, "Mom, don't say any more. I understand." Wu Yuding was speechless. This girl was obviously very happy, but she still called to ask for instructions. She was desperately trying to prove that it wasn't her idea. It was her mom who wanted them to get on the train first, that if she wasn't her own daughter, if she didn't know Zhou Xiaonian's personality, Wu Yuding, she would definitely beat her. You want to save face, but you sold your mother out. What a filial daughter. 10 days later, we'll hold at Sun and Moon Pass. Wu Yuding said in a low voice. Okay, thank you, Mom. You two don't have to worry about anything else. Focus on dual cultivation. We'll arrange all the guests and venues. Thank you, Mom. Shouldn't Mom thank you for that? Thank you for finally becoming my daughter-in-law. Mom, you're making fun of me again. After hanging up, Zhou Xiaonian's face was flushed red. Her eyes secretly drifted to Zhou Xiaoduo, almost dripping tears. She whispered, I'm a little scared. I'm not prepared. I don't have experience. Zhou Xiaoduo was grinning from ear to ear. His face was radiant as he raised his eyebrows and said lewdly, It's bad to have experience. I don't have experience either. I have to cross the river by feeling the stones. We can prepare together and try together. Slowly we will have experience. Nian Mao, do you think we should go to the Tower of Annihilation? Zhou Xiaoduo couldn't wait. He rubbed his hands and was eager to try. Let's go to the tower. Damn, I'm telling you, this is just for cultivation. Yes. You're right. Of course, we're doing this for cultivation, and to improve ourselves. We're forced by circumstances, it's not our fault. Zhou Xiaoduo's words gradually became incoherent and nonsensical. Outside, Zhou Xiaonian still felt unsafe. The worst thing was that she was really nervous right now. She felt her whole body stiffen. And she didn't even know how to walk properly. She looked like a criminal who was about to be sent to the execution ground. She instinctively grabbed Zhou Xiaoduo's sleeve like a helpless little girl and begged, Duo, can you wait? Come, let's go in. Zhou Xiaoduo held Zhou Xiaonian's hand tightly and didn't let go. His face was still mixed with the big bad wolf's smile, as he pulled with all his might. Zhou Xiaonian's feet were nailed to the ground. She sat back, and was dragged by Zhou Xiaoduo on the ground. Wait. I'm scared. Don't be scared, hee. Your laughter is so scary. How is it scary, hee? What are you so happy about? I've been waiting for this day for many years. Finally, it's here, hee. Zhuo Xiaoduo held Zhuo Xiaonian's hands together with one hand and walked in front of her proudly. Zhuo Xiaonian's body kept leaning back. However, her hands were caught, and her hips kept falling. Her feet couldn't move, and she was dragged into the Tower of Annihilation. Li Chenglong and the others were practicing in a place far away, because the gap between the two sides was too big. Everyone habitually used the mountains as the boundary. Thousands of miles away was Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian's practice area. No one would look for trouble and ask for trouble. If they came here, they would be tortured. What was the point of coming here? However, over there, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian often went to look for trouble. Therefore, the place where the two of them were staying was unusually quiet. The two of them moved into a small courtyard that had its own entrance. Their days were rather elegant. Previously, the thing that Zhuo Xiaonian was most happy to do was to tidy up this small courtyard. When she was cultivating, she would take care of the flowers and plants. She would use a small pair of delicate scissors to trim the branches. Her life could be said to be extremely comfortable and full of vitality. Every time this happened, Zhuo Xiaonian's mouth would hold a gentle and quiet faint smile. She only felt comfortable, relaxed, and happy all over. However, when she came in this time and looked at this small courtyard, she had long placed her hopes for the future and yearned for happiness. However, at this moment she was filled with fear. She wanted to avoid it like the plague. When Zhuo Xiaoduo dragged her in through the door, her two little feet left 2 marks on the ground that she was still begging. Don't. She did not look like a great cultivator who had reached the Dao integration stage at all. She was simply acting like a young girl who had fallen into a wolf's den. Zhuo Xiaoduo's role as the evil tyrant was even more vivid and realistic. Especially the cackle that came from the bottom of his heart. It showed that the villain's skills were very good. It would not be an exaggeration to award 2 Best Actor and Best Actress awards just from this scene alone. When they entered the room, Zhuo Xiaonian's pretty face turned even paler. As she watched Zhuo Xiaoduo quickly set up a soundproof enchantment, her entire body started to tremble. Her cultivation base, which was enough to look down on all the Dao integration stage cultivators in this world, seemed to have completely disappeared. She desperately said to herself in her heart, I've already set my mind on this person. What happened today was just a matter of time. Didn't he already take advantage of me before? All that's left is this last line of defense. What's going to happen will happen eventually. I wasn't afraid before, so what's there to be afraid of today? Isn't he still the same person? However, even though she told herself thousands of times in her heart, she still could not help but feel nervous and fearful of the arrival of that moment. Zhuo Xiaoduo looked at Nian Mao. Nian Mao's situation did not seem right. If this continued, wouldn't she be traumatized? He immediately turned his eyes and said faintly, Nian Mao, do you still remember the wine that Mom and Dad gave us back then? The wine that we won? Zhuo Xiaonian's thoughts were even more rigid now. She turned her head unconsciously. Zhuo Xiaoduo said, the wine that can't be drunk until one reaches the heavenly ascension stage? Do you have any recollection of it? Do you remember now? Zhuo Xiaonian's lifeless eyes regained a bit of life. Her brain spun rapidly, and she nodded. I remember now. He suddenly thought of a way to stall for time, which was to drink wine and stall for time. Shit. We're both Dao integration stage super mighty figures now. How could you hide that wine from us? He scolded as if he had been reborn. Take it out and drink it. Zhuo Xiaoduo was a bit confused. Drink it. He thought to himself. I haven't even said anything yet, and you're already asking to drink it. What the hell is going on? What are you hesitating for? Zhuo Xiaonian said in one breath. I'll drink with you tonight. After that, we'll do so and so. What do you think? Drink with me, and then we'll do so and so. Zhuo Xiaoduo chuckled and immediately stopped. He said solemnly, let's consummate our marriage first, then drink. Zhuo Xiaonian immediately became nervous. No, let's drink first. Drink first. Yes, drink first. Are we really drinking first? Yes, we're drinking first. Then, there's nothing else. You can drink wine that can improve your cultivation when you reach the heavenly ascension stage. How could you forget that? You've committed a heinous crime. Zhuo Xiaoyan forced herself to pretend to be very angry. She said evilly, "Hurry up and take out the wine. What are you waiting for? Cut the crap. I've never seen someone as irresponsible as you." Zhuo Xiaoduo pretended to dawdle. Zhuo Xiaoyan kept urging him. She raised her eyebrows and put on a fierce look. "Hurry up! Hurry up! Hurry up!" As she spoke, she glared and stomped her feet. She looked very angry. Obviously, she was grasping at the last straw and refused to let go. Zhuo Xiaoduo had no choice but to start rummaging in the space ring. "Where is it? There are too many things. I can't find it in such a short time. Why don't we consummate our marriage first? You have to drink first. Otherwise, you won't be able to do anything," Zhuo Xiaoyan said loudly. Okay. Oh, I found it." Zhuo Xiaoduo immediately took out 2 jugs. His actions were clean and swift. Chapter 1270. Hurry up and find. Zhuo Xiaoyan urged him, but before she could finish her sentence, Zhuo Xiaoduo had already taken out the wine and placed it on the table. Seeing the wine in front of her, Zhuo Xiaoyan was stunned. Her beautiful eyes widened as she looked at the wine, and then at Zhuo Xiaoduo. She felt that something was wrong. "Didn't you say? It was hard to find. Why did you take it out and place it here in just 2 or 3 seconds?" Zhuo Xiaoduo sighed. "Why are we drinking wine at this time?" Zhuo Xiaoyan was relieved. She rolled her eyes and said, "Your heart is full of dirty things. I don't want to talk to you. Come on, let's drink." Zhuo Xiaoduo hesitated. "Just drinking wine? There's no food." Zhuo Xiaoyan was furious. "You usually have so much good wine and food in your space ring. You can have dozens of banquets at any time. How can there be no food today? You're obviously trying to shirk responsibility and cause trouble. I won't let you get away with it today." Zhuo Xiaoyan snorted and said, "You don't have food, but I do." She took out a pile of food from her space ring and placed 17 or 18 different dishes on the table. With a victorious smile, she asked condescendingly, "What about now? Is there food?" Zhuo Xiaoduo nodded and said humbly, "Yes, there's so much food." "Then what are you waiting for?" Zhuo Xiaoyan said in a cold and arrogant tone. "Sigh." Zhuo Xiaoduo heaved a long sigh as if he was deeply moved. But in his heart he thought this time, it's settled. Ha ha ha. And he pretended to be innocent. "I didn't know. You were the one who insisted on drinking wine. How would I know the wine would be like this? Am I that kind of person?" Blah blah blah. Blah. 2 transparent cups were placed on the table. The aroma of the food filled the air. It was so delicious that people below the inner core realm would not be able to take a bite. Zhuo Xiaoduo carefully opened the mud seal. He did not want to waste anything. Zhuo Xiaoyan looked at the dishes on the table, and for some reason, he seemed to be deeply moved. He sighed and said, Duo, only now do I feel that things are different from before. When we were in Phoenix City, we didn't even dare to imagine such dishes. Every piece of meat is from a beast king. How extravagant. With just this table of dishes, if I were to sell it, it would only take a blink of an eye for me to become the wealthiest person in Phoenix City. Zhuo Xiaoyan's eyes looked distant, with a hint of sadness. Zhuo Xiaoduo knew that she was thinking about Meng Qinyu. While opening the mud seal, he said, "Actually, there are many things like this. No matter if it is the cultivation world or the secular world, there are always some things that are unattainable. For example, a watch that the upper echelons of the secular world play with may not be able to afford even after 3 lifetimes of hard work. Even if they could afford it, they would not be willing to buy it. Even if they did buy it, what use would it be? However, a piece of meat in the cultivation world is something that those so-called upper echelons of the secular world can't afford, even if they spend 3 lifetimes. Even if they can afford it, they can only look at it as it stinks and rots without daring to eat it. The logic behind this is similar. Although everyone is calling for and advocating equality, in this society, in this world, there is a hierarchy. Whether it's the dominant or the recessive, although this level will change with time, it will still be relatively stable and unshakable for a certain period of time. There are some things that are not there when they are born. There are some things that clearly exist but generations of ancestors say that they are not real. The whole continent of astral souls advocates monogamy, but this rule is completely different when it comes to the cultivation world and the upper echelons of the secular world. They educate everyone to follow the rules, and the people who set the rules and the people who benefit from it will always be the ones who break the rules. Swishaoduo was serious for once. But personally, I hope that I will never break the rules. With the power of an immortal, I cultivate the heart of a mortal. This is my way, Swishaoduo said with emotion. Xiaonian looked at him in a daze. She had never seen a puppy like this, but it was so respectable and charming. And it was overflowing with. Was that a kind of Taoist connotation? Yes, it was Taoist connotation. When Xiaoduo said, with the power of an immortal, I cultivate the heart of a mortal, the entire space of the Tower of Annihilation was suddenly filled with Taoist connotation. It was a Tao that was completely different from the previous Tao. Li Chenglong and the others, no matter what they were doing, fell into an epiphany because of the sudden Taoist connotation. Not only Li Chenglong and the others but Xiao, Bai, Jiao, and the others also fell silent at this moment, as if they had fallen asleep. The Wahuang sword shone brightly. After a while, the light slowly disappeared, just like an ordinary sword. I see. The Wahuang sword was full of emotions. I see. This kid has actually created a completely different Tao. So this is the truth of Tao. Everyone's original intention of cultivation is to become stronger, to live a long life, to become an immortal, to be high and mighty, and to look down on others as ants. But they don't know that when this kind of mentality is born, whether or not they can reach that level, they have already broken away from their own foundation. Because we are mortals. Once we look down on mortals, we look down on ourselves. If we look down on ourselves, then how can we hope to achieve the Tao? At this point, the Wahuang sword was suddenly at a loss. Could it be Zhu Wu, the sages, the demon emperor, and the others? Their Taos were all wrong. How is that possible? Or is there more than one Tao in the 3,000 Taos? Then which Tao should I choose? Sword of Empress Enviwa fell into a deep confusion. After a long time, he raised his head and looked in the direction of Xiaoduo. Since fate has allowed me to fall into the hands of Zhua, then I shall walk the Tao of Zhua. Then, the Wahuang sword also entered a state of enlightenment. Xiaoduo did not know what kind of movement his words had created. At the same time, he did not feel that his soul and divine sense had become unprecedentedly clear at this moment, that he did not even feel that his cultivation was advancing by leaps and bounds at this moment, that he was now pouring the wine with single-minded devotion. The first cup was filled. Xiaonian looked at the wine and said emotionally, Duo, if we were not the descendants of the minister, do you think we would be able to reach where we are today? This question was a little heavy. Xiaoduo pondered for a moment and thought carefully. Then he said slowly, maybe we would be able to achieve something. But we would not be able to reach where we are today at such a young age. He thought of the time when he had the Phoenix Pulse Spirit. Although he had his own arrangements and the mysterious jade pendant that helped him gain the strange ability of fortune-telling, that but one thing was certain. If it were not for his parents, he and Xiaonian would not have been able to obtain the Flaming Sun Scripture and the Moon Scripture. As for the benefits brought by these two cultivation methods, it was easy to see. If it were not for them, not to mention whether they would be able to reach where they were today, the Phoenix Pulse Spirit might not have been able to pass that stage. And his sword and hammer, if it were not for his parents, Uncle Wu would not have been able to go there. Although my parents did not say who they are, the blessings we have received are incomparable to others, Xiaoduo said affirmatively. Without them, we would not be able to reach where we are today. Xiaonian nodded slowly. My parents are so good. Although I scolded them every day when I was in Phoenix City, now that I think about it and know who I am, there are only 2 words. Xiaoduo winked. So fragrant. Xiaonian could not help but laugh. Doggy, you are so cheap. I am your husband. How can you say that to your husband? Xiaoduo said seriously. Kiss me as punishment. Cough cough. Let's drink. The two of them sat opposite each other. Xiaonian's face was like a peach blossom, For the first time, she raised her wine glass and said with a smile, "Doggy, it is rare for you to be so obedient. Come, let's drink." With a ding, the two wine glasses clinked. Zhuo Xiaoyan raised her glass and downed it in one gulp. The large glass of wine was downed in one gulp. Based on their cultivation, even if it was aged and mellow, it would not affect them too much. However, as soon as Zhuo Xiaoyan drank the wine, she felt a line of fire burning from her throat all the way down. Then her whole body heated up. Her pretty face instantly turned red, but she felt relieved. It was rare that Doggy did not pester her. His performance today was really good. Even my mother has spoken, but Doggy did not force me. That was good. Thinking of this, her pretentious cold face suddenly became gentler. She looked across and saw Zhuo Xiaoduo staring at her, as if he had seen something unbelievable. She could not help but be fierce again. "Hurry up and drink. How can a man be so slow? You can't even compare to a little girl like me." Zhuo Xiaoduo was really shocked. Seeing Zhuo Xiaoyan drink a large glass of wine in an unusually bold and unrestrained manner, he felt that the script was very normal, or even too normal. She was simply performing beyond her level. Hearing the urging, he naturally did not hesitate. He raised his glass and downed it in one gulp. He exhaled and said, "It is really good wine. The wine must be really good." After it entered his stomach, a ball of fire burned and quickly spread along his meridians. The pure spiritual power that had been settled many times in his body suddenly became lively. In his dantian, there was also a feeling of exploding. Their meridians were wide, and the flow of their spiritual power was much faster than that of ordinary cultivators. At this moment, after drinking a large glass of wine, it was like a flash flood, running on its own. Both of them could feel that their spiritual source was growing at a rapid pace. It was a far cry from their usual cultivation. "This wine is really good." Zhuo Xiaoyan felt the abnormality in her body and praised endlessly. She analyzed, "After absorbing all the medicinal power in this glass of wine, my strength will increase by at least a quarter. It is really good wine, as expected of the wine that our parents specially warned us about. If we drink this wine before reaching the Skysoar realm, we will be in big trouble. Good wine. Good stuff." Zhuo Xiaoyan beamed with joy and praised. Fortunately, it was all thanks to this wine. Otherwise. Chapter 1271. Zhuo Xiaoyan said this from the bottom of her heart. She was not exaggerating at all. Her current foundation was only slightly inferior to Zhuo Xiaoduo's among her peers or cultivators of the same level since ancient times. A quarter of her current spiritual power was almost comparable to the lifetime cultivation of an ordinary cultivator at the peak of the Dao integration stage. Otherwise, how could the two of them defeat Li Chenglong and other cultivators who had advanced to the Dao integration stage with the power of flying in the sky? And such a spiritual power base was just the energy contained in a glass of wine. Naturally, the two of them did not know that this wine was specially brewed for the Fire Witch and his wife. It was natural for it to have such an effect. Therefore, it was natural for Zhuo Xiaoyan and Zhuo Xiaoduo, who drank it for the first time, to be shocked. The spiritual source was too abundant. After a full 2 minutes, the initial scorching heat subsided slightly, and the spiritual source was fully activated. Zhuo Xiaoyan ate a few mouthfuls of food in a row, trying to suppress the drunkenness. After all, it was such a big glass of wine. It was natural for her to feel tipsy after drinking it in one breath. She would naturally feel better if she ate a few more mouthfuls of food. She did not know whether the food was really effective or just a psychological effect. Anyway, Zhuo Xiaoyan really felt a little better. She blushed and said, "This wine, why is it so hot?" Zhuo Xiaoduo said with a serious face, "It's natural for the body to feel hot after drinking, not to mention such a good wine. It would be abnormal if the body didn't feel hot, right?" He said with concern, "It should be because you don't usually drink, and you drank a lot this time. Naturally, you feel a little tipsy. If you feel that you can't bear it, we can." Zhuo Xiaoyan was afraid that he would turn the topic back to the bridal chamber. So she hurriedly said, "I can hold my liquor very well. I said that I want to drink tonight, so I'll drink more." Zhuo Xiaoduo touched his nose and said with a smile, "Okay, I'll listen to you. I'll listen to you. Therefore, Zhuo Xiaoyan personally stood up and moved the wine jar over. She then poured wine for herself and Zhuo Xiaoduo. She lifted her glass and said, Duo, this is the first time we've drunk alone in our lives. Come on, cheers. She looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo, and her heart was filled with tenderness. Perhaps it was because of the alcohol, but the little puppy in front of her was pleasing to the eye no matter how she looked at it. No matter how she looked at it, she fell in love with it. No matter how she looked at it, it was the perfect person to entrust her life to. She couldn't help but whisper, Toto, to be able to meet you and be with you in this life, it's truly great. When she spoke, her voice was much more gentle and beautiful. Compared to her usual icy beauty, she was like a different person. Zhuo Xiaoduo raised his wine glass and clinked it gently. He said softly, Yes, it's great to have you in this life. The two of them looked at each other and smiled knowingly. They could see the deep affection in each other's eyes. Their eyes were fixed on each other, and the corners of their lips were blooming with happiness. As they looked at each other's smiles, they raised their wine glasses, tilted their heads back and slowly drank. Their deep affection and sweetness were expressed without words. Their eyes were always looking at each other. Zhuo Xiaoyan's heart was filled with contentment and happiness. She wished that this moment could last forever. Suddenly, she thought that perhaps it would be a good thing to consummate their marriage tonight. However, as soon as she thought of this, her face became redder and redder. Her eyes were watery, as if they were about to drip out. She murmured, Damn. I remember Phoenix City. And your diary. She smiled happily as she spoke. Zhuo Xiaoduo was suddenly embarrassed. Diary? You peeked at my diary? Yes. Zhuo Xiaoyan smiled like a flower. When did you see it? Zhuo Xiaoduo prayed in his heart. It should have been when she saw Phoenix City, right? She didn't see it after she arrived in Fenghai, right? After she arrived in Fenghai, especially after she got engaged. What he recorded was all valuable information and learning experience, that as well as the hypothetical cultivation experience of various moves that she didn't see it, right? However, looking at Zhuo Xiaoyan's current expression, she didn't seem to have seen it. If she had seen it, she probably wouldn't have such an expression. She would have pounced on me and killed me. When else could I have seen it? I only recorded a few pages in Phoenix City. Later on, you got lazy and didn't write much. Zhuo Xiaoyan pouted, making her look even more playful. Fortunately, it was just as he expected. Yes, I'm the laziest person. I didn't write much when I arrived in Fenghai. Zhuo Xiaoduo was relieved and said casually. You didn't write much, but you did. Well, can you show me what you've written recently? The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Zhuo Xiaoyan felt that her body was a little soft, and her mind was a little blurry. She thought that the alcohol was really strong, but she was also interested in Zhuo Xiaoduo's new diary. She got close to Zhuo Xiaoduo's face and said, I want to see the new one. Zhuo Xiaoduo was startled and said, I didn't write recently. You really didn't write? Zhuo Xiaoyan asked softly as she got closer to him. They were only 2 or 3 centimeters apart. Normally, Zhuo Xiaoyan would never be so bold and teasing. However, at this moment after drinking this wine, her feelings surged. The more she looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo, the more she liked him. She felt that her body was getting colder and colder, while Zhuo Xiaoduo was getting hotter and hotter. Or she felt that Zhuo Xiaoduo's body was getting colder, and she was getting hotter and hotter. She had to get closer to him to feel comfortable. This feeling was getting heavier and heavier, and there were signs that it was getting out of control. She couldn't control herself at all. I really didn't write. Zhuo Xiaoduo looked at the petal-like red lips that were close to him, and smelled the sweet fragrance. He couldn't help but pout and kiss her. The moment their lips touched, Zhuo Xiaoyan trembled as if she had been electrocuted. She only felt that her body was burning hot, and with this contact a cold breath came over. For a moment, her whole body was so comfortable that it felt like she was floating. She subconsciously retreated, but her mind became more and more blurred. She only felt that she was flying in an instant. She bit her lip and said, Duo, don't move. Zhuo Xiaoduo said, I won't move. Miss Cat, have we drunk enough for today? We've drunk 2 big glasses, which is almost half a kilo. Zhuo Xiaoyan only felt that her body was getting hotter and hotter, and her body was getting softer and softer. Her breathing became rapid, but she didn't forget her original intention. She said in a trembling voice, "Drink. 1 more glass." She suddenly swayed and giggled. "There's fruit on the coffee table." She waved her hand, but for some reason, the fruit on the coffee table didn't come to her. Zhuo Xiaoyan snorted and stood up to get the fruit. But for some reason, the closer she got to Zhuo Xiaoduo, the cooler she felt his body was. On the other hand, her body was too hot. So hot that she wanted to take off her clothes. "Duo, are you hot?" Zhuo Xiaoduo looked at her swaying body and was inexplicably worried. He reached out and grabbed her hand, saying, "Miss Cat, you're drunk." When their hands touched, the cold and heat flowed at the same time. The flaming sun and moon spirit were automatically transferred to each other. Both of them trembled, as if they had been electrocuted. "It's so comfortable." Zhuo Xiaoyan's body went limp, and for some reason, she fell into Zhuo Xiaoduo's arms. Zhuo Xiaoduo pulled Zhuo Xiaoyan into his arms and placed her on his lap, saying, "Miss Cat." Zhuo Xiaoyan lay softly in his arms. Her starry eyes were dazed. She hugged him with her arms and murmured, "Doggy, you're so bad. Why is it so hot, so hot? It won't be hot if I kiss you." "No. It's not hot anymore, right? It's still hot. You can't. I'll listen to you. I'll do whatever you say." After a long time, Zhuo Xiaoyan's starry eyes were drunk. She sat in Zhuo Xiaoduo's arms, her body like cotton wool. She hugged Zhuo Xiaoduo's neck and murmured, "Doggy, kiss me." Zhuo Xiaoduo had a very satisfying night. After the first time, Zhuo Xiaoyan woke up. She felt like crying when she sensed her condition. She pouted and said, "Why?" "I don't know," Zhuo Xiaoduo said happily. "We were going to consummate our marriage anyway. The heavens are helping us. But this is not right. Doggy, you tricked me." "I didn't trick you. You pushed me down. You have to take responsibility for me. I don't care anymore. I was wrong. Feel it. This dual cultivation is progressing really fast. It's too fast. The spiritual energy in your body is already at the intermediate stage of the Tao integration stage." It's true. It was naturally a good thing that her cultivation base had improved. However, Zhuo Xiaoyan felt as if her entire body was falling apart. She felt as if she was floating in the sky. She subconsciously pushed him with her little hands. Get up. Why are you?" Zhuo Xiaoyan was extremely regretful. She had tried so hard to escape, but in the end, she had delivered herself to him. This was a classic case of being caught in a trap of one's own making. She had delivered herself to the door and delivered herself to the tiger's mouth. However, she couldn't say anything. She was also very smart. After thinking about it, how could she not think of the problem? The problem must be with the wine. But why was there a problem with the wine? The wine itself was a rare tonic. Ordinary people would not be able to withstand the spiritual energy emitted from the wine, let alone taste it. This was definitely true. Moreover, after doing that, her cultivation base had indeed improved greatly. This was even more evidence. Moreover, she was the one who suggested drinking wine. Zhuo Xiaoduo didn't take the initiative to mention it. So where did the problem lie? Zhuo Xiaoyan spent the whole night running, resisting, begging for mercy, and then collapsing into a pile of mud. Over and over again, Zhuo Xiaoduo didn't expect himself to be so brave, that the result was that the next morning, Zhuo Xiaoyan's body was filled with earth-shattering cultivation base. But it seemed that she couldn't even move a finger. Her face was pale, and she was lying on the bed. It seemed that she didn't have long to live. Anyway, her condition didn't look good. Zhuo Xiaoduo, on the other hand, was full of energy. He got up half naked, wearing only shorts, and quickly looked for recovery medicine in the space ring. "Come on, drink a bottle. Good girl." After drinking the water, Zhuo Xiaoyan lay back on the bed heavily panting. She pulled up the quilt and covered her body. She said weakly, You go out." "I won't go out. I have to take care of you." "I don't need you to take care of me. Go out quickly." "I'm not naughty. I'm just a little sleepy and want to sleep." Zhuo Xiaoyan was shocked. Her beautiful eyes widened. I can't. Don't come over. At this moment, Xiaonian was so nervous that even her toes were taut. She really couldn't take it anymore. For the whole night, the little dog was like a battering ram. Xiaonian felt that her body had shattered into a galaxy of stars. Sometimes, even her consciousness had shattered into a galaxy of stars. It wasn't a short while, but a whole 13 hours. Now, after resting for less than half an hour, Xiaoduo was actually sleepy again. How could Xiaonian not be afraid? That how could this be? Absolutely not. I want to get up. Xiaonian struggled to get up. I'll help you put on your clothes. Let me serve Sister Nian Nian. Sister Nian Nian, it's been hard on you. Get out of here. Aha. It's inconvenient for you. I'm helping you. How can you treat my kindness as malice? You're letting my heart down. Then don't move around. You're thinking too much. She was only halfway through putting on her clothes, but it turned into taking off her clothes. You, I really can't take it anymore. I'll help you cultivate. Once your cultivation is high enough, you'll be able to take another step forward. It wasn't until the afternoon that Xiaonian struggled to get up on her trembling legs. She put on her clothes and cleaned up the mess on the bed with a red face that not only the bedsheets, but even the mattress and blankets were kept in her space ring. Then, she weakly sat on the sofa and leaned against the back of the sofa. She verbally instructed Xiaoduo to clean up the mess. Xiaoduo was still bare-chested and wearing only a pair of shorts. He was excitedly busy. As he worked, he reminisced about the aftertaste. From time to time, he would let out hee sounds. Finally, his long-cherished wish came true. Xiaoduo was now filled with happiness. He was perfectly satisfied. Basically, he didn't think about anything else. He only thought that it was almost night time. However, Nian Nian Cat's first time last night was torturous. Tonight, as he was making the bed, he suddenly turned around and asked with concern, Nian Nian Cat, have you applied medicine? Xiaonian blushed. She snorted and didn't say anything. As a cultivator of my generation, the higher the cultivation, the stronger the physique, and the faster the recovery of the body. Are you almost fully recovered? Xiaoduo asked excitedly. No, I just got up. I'm not in a good condition. Xiaonian saw that Xiaoduo's face was filled with longing for the taste of the marrow, and he was furious. Naturally, he didn't want to be nice to him. After cleaning up, Xiaoduo supported Xiaonian and took a walk in the villa. He supported her carefully as if she was fragile porcelain. Actually, you'll get used to it. Bah! I don't want to get used to it. Nian Nian Cat, think about it carefully. You were the one who pushed me last night. I was the one who was passive. You're still talking about it. Xiaoduo supported her while nagging. Nian Nian Cat, when I was studying the learning materials, I found a particularly interesting posture. Get lost. Okay, we'll study it later. I told you to get lost. No problem, we can criticize it later. At the same time, we can practice it. As the saying goes, true knowledge comes from practice. That, as a high-level cultivator, Xiaonian's physical body recovered very quickly. At night, she didn't feel anything unusual. She held her sword and planned to start practicing to strengthen her foundation. After all, the progress of her cultivation last night could only be described as terrifying. The spiritual power of water and fire was completely dissolved. Moreover, it was the first time they had drunk this kind of wine. Naturally, the effect was extraordinarily powerful. In addition, it was the first time they had dual cultivation using the fiery sun and moon spirit. It would be illogical if they didn't benefit from it. In just one night, the two of them had risen from the initial stage of the Tao integration stage to the advanced stage of the Tao integration stage. Both of them felt the strange and powerful power in their bodies. This matter was so magical. If they could improve at this speed, even if there was only half a month left before the demons returned, half a month in the real world was equivalent to 7.5 years in the Tower of Annihilation. After 7.5 years of dual cultivation, it shouldn't be difficult for the two of them to advance to the primordial chaos realm. Perhaps they could even go one step further. This was simply, by the way, Didn't you say yesterday that you were going to collect the Astral Soul's jade powder? Zhou Xiaoyan rolled her eyes and said, And those things you printed? You can also collect a batch of them. Zhou Xiaoyan's abacus clicked loudly. As long as she coaxed the little dog out of the Tower of Annihilation, no matter how long he stayed outside, she could always rest for a few days in the Tower of Annihilation. If that was the case, it would be a lot easier. Last night, the little dog went on a rampage almost tirelessly. She was so weak that she didn't have any strength left, but the little dog still refused to let her go. He actually took advantage of her when she was weak. When she was powerless to resist, he played with her. Just thinking about it made Zhou Xiaoyan's face turn red with embarrassment. It was so embarrassing that this little dog was too despicable. How could he bully her like this? If he continued to do it tonight, she wouldn't be able to stand it. Zhou Xiaoduo suddenly remembered. Yes, you're right. This way, you'll have time to rest. I'll be back soon. Wait for me. As he spoke, he left the Tower of Annihilation in a flash, whistling. Zhou Xiaoyan heaved a sigh of relief. She staggered to the side of the bed and fell directly onto it. She fell asleep. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Zhou Xiaoduo anxiously went out for a walk. After his identity was exposed, he simply used his connections to request the officials to send all the remaining Astral Soul's jade powder that was used for cultivation to Fenghai. Because of this, they specially opened up a huge place to settle it. Because of this order, many cultivators came from all over the world to dump large amounts of Astral Soul's jade powder here every day. Boss Sun, who was originally in charge of purchasing the Astral Soul's jade powder for Zhou Xiaoduo, was promoted to the chief steward. His daily job was to supervise and organize people to collect the jade powder properly. Every time Zhou Xiaoduo came, the place would be emptied. However, very soon, mountains of jade powder would be piled up again. After all, the Astral Soul's jade powder was an inevitable product of cultivators' cultivation. The entire continent worked together to supply it. The amount was indescribable. During this time, in the Tower of Annihilation, mountains of jade powder of Astral Soul's jade powder fell. The efficiency was many times higher than before. Guan Shanhe only had one job now, which was to lead a large team and travel back and forth between Shangjing and Fenghai. There was only one job, which was to obtain Tianji orders. Therefore, Zhou Xiaoduo only needed to go to Fang Yinua's place to obtain a large amount of Tianji orders. No one knew what Zhou Xiaoduo was thinking. He already had hundreds of billions of Tianji orders in his hands. No matter what, Zhou Xiaoduo wouldn't be able to use them all up. However, Zhou Xiaoduo insisted on taking as much as he could get. The Tianji orders were only for one order, but the content was to make as much as they could. Now, all the printing factories around Shangjing and Shangjing were urged by Jin Yunxing to contact their bosses and directly stop all other business. They only made Tianji orders, and the production capacity accumulated like this reached a terrifying level. Guan Shanhe went once a day and realized that the space rings of 100 people were definitely not enough. Therefore, the next time he went, he sent a team of 200 people. If it wasn't for the sake of safety, Guan Shanhe would have brought all the space rings with him. However, if they were robbed, Guan Shanhe admitted that he couldn't bear the responsibility. Since he already had so many Tianji orders in his hands, Zhou Xiaoduo used them without any scruples. The last time he came back from Shangjing, he distributed more than 100,000 of them along the way. He used them very generously. A few days ago, when he went to the Hidden Dragon High School, he also distributed one to each person. As a result, everyone in the Hidden Dragon High School had a copy. With this operation, the benefits that came with it came one after another. Originally, if Zhou Xiaoduo only relied on himself, even if he had a godlike appearance and an eidetic memory, it would be impossible for him to remember so many people. Now that the Tianji orders were distributed in large quantities, as long as he saw a person in the future, he could just take the Tianji orders from them and take a look. He didn't need to spend time memorizing the person's background or karma. And before Zhou Xiaoduo made it clear, the other party wouldn't be able to see that he had such a card on him no matter what. This could be said to be Zhou Xiaoduo's biggest cheat at the moment, and the source of his confidence. Everyone who had received the Tianji orders from him only needed to take a look at them to know the trajectory of their fate. As for those who hadn't received the Tianji orders, he would wait until he met them, and then distribute one. What a simple matter! It had to be said that ever since the integration of the jade pendant on his chest, and the upgrade of his cultivation technique, Zhou Xiaoduo was now the world's biggest cheat. In this mortal world, he was a living bug-level existence. Chapter 1272. Imagine how terrifying it would be when everyone in the world no longer had any secrets in front of you. Even though Zhou Xiaoduo had the identity of a super second-generation heir and the strength of a high-level cultivator, he still didn't dare to explain why he printed so many Tianji orders. He was worried that he would be beaten to death if he told others about it. It was a taboo. Therefore, even Zhou Xiaonian didn't know the whole story. When Zhou Xiaoduo came out this time, he saw that all the cities and villages on the continent were working hard to build earthquake-proof houses. It was probably because of this policy that many skyscrapers that were under construction stopped, and the surrounding areas were emptied. The government gave a strict order to demolish all the buildings that were more than 10 stories tall, within a limited time. There will be continents returning soon. When the two continents collide, there will be a strong earthquake, and the aftershocks will be continuous for a long time. This explosive news was spread all over the world. As for the source of this news, it was naturally Wan Minxing who spread the news, and then Zhou Xiaoduo. This news would certainly cause people's hearts to waver, but as long as it was handled properly, it could mobilize the people's solidarity and help them overcome the difficulties together. In fact, the three continents were doing the same thing and making the same choice. This time, the return of the continents was preemptively prevented. The people or other lives that were supposed to die in this earthquake would all be rewarded with merits. And this merit would be shared by Wan Minxing, Zhou Xiaoduo, and the higher-ups of the astral souls. This great merit would also become a great foundation for the higher-ups of the astral souls. The entire astral souls issued the notice to demolish the tall buildings with unprecedented urgency, and almost no resistance was met that this was the trend of the world. Some of the places where the tall mountains were, countless warriors had set up layers of protection to prevent landslides and other disasters from happening. In short, everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. Everyone was racing against time and doing their best to avoid the arrival of this calamity. Which direction will it come from? This was a question that Zhou Chonglu and the others had been pondering over. No one knows what the geographical distribution of the ancient times was like. The return of the continent of devils is a foregone conclusion, but was it originally located in the continent of astral souls? Or on the Wu people's side? Was it returning to its original position? Or random regression? No one could answer this question, especially after he returned. He had no idea what he looked like. For example, when there was only the astral souls continent, and the Dao League continent returned, the astral souls continent and the Dao League continent were bordered by high mountains on one side and a boundless ocean on the other. When the Umno Alliance returned, the two continents were connected by land, while the Umno Alliance and the Dao League were separated by an ocean. Now that the demon race's continent had returned, how it would come into contact with the existing three continents was still unknown and difficult to predict. In order to prevent the continent from falling into panic, the higher-ups of the Astral Souls continent threw out another piece of shocking news. This news was, the son of the Sky Patrol minister was getting married. The time was set to be 10 days later. Well, it should be 9 days later now that the Sky Patrol minister couple sent out an invitation to the entire continent. We welcome all the heroes of the world to attend the ceremony. In this message, there was no mention of who could come and who couldn't, but all the forces were aware of this. Those who weren't qualified couldn't go. Especially since the wedding was held at the Sun Moon Pass. The journey was quite far that the current Sun Moon Pass was probably more dangerous than before. This was a moment of life and death for the continent. Those who were weak shouldn't join in the fun. In addition, many people knew that such a big shot wouldn't just hold a simple wedding. They would use this wedding as an excuse to arrange some follow-up. What follow-up? You can't think of it? Is your brain filled with tofu dregs? Didn't you see that the Sky Patrol Minister couple sent out invitations to all the heroes of the world? That included the Tao League and the UMNO Alliance. It was equivalent to inviting all the powerhouses in the world, and there were no restrictions. If you still couldn't figure out this mystery, then your brain must have been damaged. And it must be quite damaged. Actually, Zhuo Changlu and his wife weren't interested in the guesses of the world. They were busy with something important. After all, there were some people that they needed to contact personally. Brother Yu, on that day, you will definitely be the MC. Zhuo Changlu was on the phone. No problem. Other than me, no one else in the world is qualified. Okay. Brother Lei, don't forget to invite everyone to drink on that day. This is really a joyous occasion. Okay. Cough, your wife emptied our warehouse the last time. Oh, is that so? Ha ha. Then she should have accumulated quite a lot by now, right? Okay, you must come. I have prepared a banquet. Okay, I'm hanging up. Brother Hong, your godson is getting married. If you're busy, you don't have to come. What do you mean, Zwa? What? Could it be that you want to come? Are you giving me face? My son is getting married, and I don't come personally. Is there any logic in this world? What the hell? You mean you want to come as your son's godfather? Are you sure you're not joking? I'm joking with you. My identity should have been exposed long ago. What's the point of hiding it? The demons are coming soon. This is a joyous occasion. As the father, shouldn't I sit on the stage and enjoy my godson's kowtow? Of course. As long as you prepare a red packet, there will naturally be tea for you. I'm willing to bleed this time. I must prepare a huge red packet. Well, how can a red packet be enough? Your godson and goddaughter are getting married. In addition to your son and daughter-in-law, you also have to face your daughter and son-in-law. You should know that in your heart. Zwa, you're really not human. You're blackmailing me. Did I blackmail you? Zhuo Changlu said righteously. Tell me, am I blackmailing you this time? The flood witch stuttered on the other end for a long time. Finally she sighed. You're not blackmailing me. It's good that you know. By the way, help me inform the UMNO Alliance. Don't mess up the wedding of your son, daughter, son-in-law and daughter-in-law. I'm hanging up. I'm very busy here. Before she finished speaking, the busy tone of the phone rang. The flood witch felt helpless in her heart. Should I inform him? How? Should I really say that my godson is getting married, and we should all go to the wedding banquet? Should I do this? Or should I say that Zhuo Changchang's son is getting married, and we should all go to the wedding banquet? The flood witch struggled for a long time, and finally didn't have the nerve to use the first reason. Her telepathic thoughts shook all the grand wizards. Ahem, something big is coming. Zhuo Changchang's son is getting married, and he invited us to attend the ceremony. Everyone get ready and go. I've already agreed. I'll personally lead the team. All the grand wizards suddenly boiled up, and several of them were particularly excited. After all, they had already learned from someone about the intimate relationship between Zhuo Xiaoduo and their boss. The flood witch invited all the grand wizards to join the group chat. Golden Scale Wizard. Boss actually knows how to pull people into a group. It's a wonder. It's amazing. Boundless Wizard. More than that. In this life, I can see boss create a group and get pulled into it. I can die without regrets. Poisonous Wizard was excited. Boss, can I go too? Yes. Ha, long live boss. Dankong Wizard. Haha, I'll start preparing the gifts. Fire Wizard. Haha, I've already prepared the gifts. I knew there would be a day like this. Zhumang Wizard. You've prepared everything? Then I'll prepare the gifts too. The Icy Hell Witch said, a bunch of poor people. Only you can prepare shit. When the time comes, it will depend on the boss. Let the boss alone represent all of us. After all, this is a very wonderful and happy event. It's so wonderful that it's called Quack. System notification. Ice Hell Wizard was kicked out of the group chat. Then, the Great Fire Witch pulled the Great Ice Witch back into the group chat. Ice Hell Wizard. Haha, someone's face is reserved, but I'm afraid he's already overjoyed. His body is upright. Ha. Someone is just at Sundara. Dress up well, and don't embarrass yourself. Then Ice Hell Wizard was kicked out of the group chat again. After that, Great Witch Flood carried her twin hammers and went to the Ice Soul Mountain. After a while, Ice Hell Wizard said in the group chat, "I've prepared the gifts. This is the time to show the strength of the Umno Alliance. Everyone must be prepared. Don't embarrass yourself, and don't embarrass the Wu people. Icy Hell Witch, this is the most important thing at the moment. Everyone must be on high alert. Icy Underworld Witch, prepare some gifts. Let boss look through the gifts first just in case. Icy Underworld Witch, maybe there will be a meeting this time. Brothers, you have to be prepared. There were some problems that needed to be considered in advance. For example, what if the demons returned? Great Ice Nether Witch." While all the other senior magi were dumbfounded, the senior Ice Hell Magus sent 20 to 30 messages in the group. He wasn't being cheap at all. He didn't have the slightest bit of foul mouth. It was all about the overall situation and the harmony of the three races. Raging Inferno, Pill Emptiness, Wind Emperor, Bamboo Radiance, Boundless Golden Scales, Burning Candle, Thunder Bow, Venomous Poison, West Sea all expressed their feelings at the same time. Dazed eyes, dazed eyes, dazed eyes, dazed eyes. Did Bing Ming really say that? How could Bing Ming say that? Wasn't this too serious? Fuck that, I've been with my brother for so many years, but I still don't understand him. That this is definitely a lifetime series. Wind Emperor Magus, it's okay to attend it. As for the gifts, just do whatever you want. Don't listen to Bing Ming. Zhua Changchang's son's wedding has nothing to do with us. Golden Scales Magus, Wind Emperor is right. What other business could Bing Ming have? Boundless Magus, that's true. West Sea Magus, I'll just take a fish. Thunderstorm Magus, I'm also reluctant to give something too good as a gift. 1 meter higher sky always wants to save face. I can't do something like blackmail at my son's wedding, right? Anyway, I'm not going to prepare anything. I'll just give something casually. How can the things on our senior Magus be ordinary? Pill Emptiness Magus. Haha. Raging Fire Magus. Haha. Icy Underworld Witch. Haha. Although Poisonous Magus didn't know what was going on, he keenly recalled the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer used by Zhuo in the Demon Spirit Forest last time. Instinctively, he felt that there was something going on. Poisonous Magus, I don't care how you go. I've carefully prepared a gift. It's not easy to go out. I can't make it too shabby. Although Bing Ming is unreliable most of the time, he's right this time. I can't lose the face of the senior Magus. I must take out a gift that suits the senior Magus. When the Flood Great Witch left the Deep Ice Great Witch, the Deep Ice Great Witch, who had been beaten like mud, jumped up from the ground and rushed out as well. He went to find Pill Emptiness Magus first, and then the two of them went to find Raging Fire Magus together. I can't say it. I can't tell those guys even if I'm beaten to death. Let these guys be embarrassed. It's hard to see such a good show again in my life. Icy Underworld, which was full of expectations. Ha ha ha. Pill Emptiness and Raging Fire laughed proudly. But the three of us have to prepare well. Of course, if we don't prepare, won't we also be acting? It's better to find some rare things that others can't find and attract people's attention. Yes, this time the three of us will give face to the boss. The boss will definitely look at us differently. What's the use of looking at us differently? Just don't hit me. I didn't say anything in the group today, and I was beaten up at the door. The boss may be going through menopause. Quiet. Shut up. Ha ha ha. Even if I don't say it, you can see that guy is now proud and arrogant. What has he become? He's just a godfather, but he thinks he's his real father. Bah, Zhuo doesn't even know him. Boom. The Flood Witch appeared in the air, raised the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer high, and fell heavily. Boom, boom, boom. Say a few more words of sarcasm for me to hear. Boss, please spare my life. I was just too outspoken. Boom, boom, boom. Help. I don't dare. I really don't dare. After a long time. Dan Kong and Icy Inferno came out together. Let's go and find something good. Where should we go? Let's go to the Demon Spirit Forest. We can also see what's going on there. Okay. I won't feel guilty if we rob them. Brother-in-law, carry me. I'm beaten up so badly that I can't walk. Walk on your own. I can't carry you. You can't carry me? Brother-in-law, why are you so weak at such a young age? TSK. No wonder my sister fights with you every day. You can't do it. Fuck your sister. Do you want to die? Fine, Dan Kong is a good guy. Don't be fooled by his face, he's really ferocious. Go to hell. Zhu Yan excitedly went all the way to the Sun Moon Pass and found Zhuo Zhonglu. However, Zhuo Zhonglu was really helpless when it came to Brother Zhu. His son had said very clearly that Zhu Yan hadn't released the disastrous aura for a long time. It was estimated that it had accumulated to a certain extent. It was best to send him to the Demon Spirit Forest. At the very least, he could send him to the Dao League continent. Anyway, he couldn't keep him by his side. He was a disaster bomb that could explode at any time. No, a nuclear bomb. The demons are about to return. Go to the Demon Spirit Forest and see if there's any movement there. Collect some information. Zhuo Zhonglu arranged. Okay, remember to be careful when collecting information. Safety is the most important thing. Okay. Zhu Yan soared into the sky in high spirits and tore through space to enter the Demon Spirit Forest. Although the location of the Demon Spirit Forest was relatively hidden, with Zhuo Xiaoduo's guidance and Zhu Yan's speed, it didn't take long for them to arrive. Collecting information was a piece of cake. Besides, there was no need to fight. Nothing would happen here. Furthermore, he wouldn't be the scapegoat again. Although the demonic aura here seems to be rich, the quality is just average. This kind of thing is most suitable for me. Zhu Yan was a ruthless character who had seen a lot of big scenes since ancient times. He went down carefully. With the current strength of the demons, they wouldn't find him even if he was beaten to death. However, the demonic aura was everywhere. It was difficult to see anything. Zhu Yan didn't find that the demons were also training their soldiers until he landed. As far as the eye could see, there were at least 1 million demon race soldiers lined up in formation, forming a black mass that stretched as far as the eye could see. There were many further away. All in all, this force was very strong. This time, when the demon ancestor returns, we must fight well. No matter what, we must be foolproof. This time we are going to face the Umno Alliance. The strength of the Umno Alliance cannot be underestimated. Although we have always been in the territory of the Umno Alliance, this is not a favor, but an exchange of conditions. We don't have to have any psychological burden. This time, when the demon ancestor returns, we are on opposite sides. This is a matter of standpoint, nothing else. At this time, Zhu Yan had taken a lot of photos and obtained a lot of material. Feeling that it was enough, he planned to go back to report. After all, it was rare to have a lot of delicious food and fun outside. Probably at this time, there was a sudden sound in the air, like a thunderclap. Ungrateful demon bastard, how dare you harbor such thoughts? In the next moment, the monstrous flames rained down from the sky with a momentum that was 1,000,000 times more explosive than a volcanic eruption. Instantly, the left side of the sky was scorched red, while the right side had silently turned into a glacier, and the middle part inexplicably collapsed, as if a piece of space was suddenly missing. With a series of spatial distortions, all the demons in this space were twisted into fragments. Then, countless knives, swords, and hidden weapons turned into a torrential downpour, mixed with unparalleled power, and sprinkled down. In just a moment, the demons below had suffered heavy casualties, countless of them. Looking carefully, there were 3 stalwart figures in the sky, and they were rushing down with murderous looks on their faces. Sure enough, those who are not of our race must have different intentions. They want to rebel. Kill them all. Once and for all, get rid of future troubles. It was Dan Kong Ice and Fire. It was the 3 great wizards who were searching for wedding gifts everywhere. They just wanted to take advantage of the demons, but when they came over, they heard that these people were actually planning to rebel. Great Wizard Dan Kong was still calling people. The demons in the demon forest are rebelling. Come quickly. At this moment, the group was the most active. Once a sentence was sent out, it was immediately filled with curses. Kill them. The great wizards rushed out one by one, eager to fight. Then they began to mobilize the troops. Then, the high-level troops of the Wu people who were relatively close to here flew over majestically. The demons are rebelling? They are really rebelling? Even the Flood, which was alarmed by this news. She carried a sledgehammer and rushed over with 3 clones. What's going on? Why did the demons who had been very peaceful suddenly rebel? That I wanted to wait until the demons returned from the continent, according to the agreement. But you guys rebelled in advance, and were caught red-handed. So don't blame me. What's more, this time, there was no prohibition against the non-poisonous great wizards participating in the war. After all, it was an extreme war that could destroy a country. It would be a waste if they didn't use the non-poisonous great wizards. When the non-poisonous great wizard, who was originally close to here, heard this news, he was so excited that he directly tore through space and flew over with a desperate posture. What the hell, after so many years, I'm finally allowed to go to the battlefield. My poison? Yes, I have it with me. With the arrival of the non-poisonous great wizard, a large area of highly toxic poison shrouded over like a black cloud. In an instant it became a hell on earth. No, a hell on earth. The highly toxic poison of the non-poisonous great wizard was worthy of being called a great wizard. It was truly the most toxic poison in the world. Zhu Yan, who was hiding nearby, also felt the threat and couldn't help but be shocked. How can this great wizard's poison be so powerful that even I was affected? He had no choice but to sneakily release his own poisonous gas to counter the poisonous gas of the non-poisonous senior magus. Zhu Yan's poison accumulated for countless years, although he didn't dare to say that it was above the non-poisonous great wizard. There was no problem in isolating it. However, Zhu Yan's own safety was not in danger, but it caused another unforeseen event. The two poisonous gases that were at the same peak suddenly came into contact, and suddenly turned into a poisonous hurricane like a boiling pot, rushing straight to the ground. Wherever it passed, even the trees and grass were quickly decayed, and turned into flying ash in the blink of an eye. Not to mention the demons. Their screams were earth-shattering and incessant. Stop! 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 Ah! A few devil elders flew up into the sky and yelled out in anger. Senior Magi, what do you mean by this? We have an agreement. You have already conspired to deal with us here. What agreement? Isn't it a matter of position? Is there any meaning to the agreement? The great wizard of fire's hands didn't stop, and his body didn't stop either. He flew back and forth over the demon spirit forest at lightning speed. Wherever he went, raging flames flew into the sky. Several elders of the demons hurriedly came up to intercept and fought with several great wizards. Finally, they temporarily restrained the three of them from slaughtering the demons wantonly. But at this time, the flood which arrived and directly caused the two elders of the demons to age and turn into fragments in the sky. The power of one hammer was unstoppable. How dare you rebel? Chapter 1273. All 12 great shamans joined the battle. They turned the huge demon spirit forest into 12 huge pools of blood. Thinking about it carefully, this was the first time since the return of the Umno Alliance had sent all 12 great shamans to the same battlefield. There was only one goal in this battle: to destroy the entire demon spirit forest. The Flood Witch's meaning was very simple. I have my own principles. I have my own principles. We agreed that as long as you don't act rashly and everyone is safe, I will guarantee that my promise is true and effective. In the past tens of thousands of years, no matter what, I restrained myself and didn't attack you because I promised before. No matter how serious the consequences are, as long as I promised, I will abide by it to the end. Even if I know that you will definitely attack us in our hinterland when the demon race returns. As long as you don't act rashly, the agreement will still be effective. But now, you are the one who first planned to deal with us, and even put it into action. So sorry, I will destroy all of you. Show no mercy. When I made my promise to you, I will be as resolute and merciless as when I slaughter you. The demon race was determined to break the agreement and choose a side, so they must bear the karma of destruction. After a while, the first Umno Alliance's main force killed their way into the demon spirit forest. Then more and more Umno Alliance troops rushed in from all directions. Don't let anyone escape. This is a battle of annihilation. When the nest is destroyed, there will be no eggs left intact. Since we have started, don't leave anyone alive. The Fire Great Shaman ordered coldly. Yes, a super large-scale massacre had unfolded. Wan Minxing hid himself in the void, and watched with tears streaming down his face. He was a person who cherished life. He was not happy to see the mass extinction of any race, especially the demonic crowd in the demonic spirit forest. He had put in a lot of effort for them to be able to reproduce to their current scale. However, since the demon race chose a side, they were only enemies. Even if Wan Minxing was merciful, he would not give it to his enemies. Zhu Yan, who was also hiding in the air, was trembling. It was too scary. I just came to inquire about some information. I have already finished my mission and was ready to go back to report. But when I came here, I found that there was no need to inquire about this information. That what is there to inquire about when they are all dead? But this has nothing to do with me at all. I just came here and did nothing. And this place was attacked. Can you blame me for this? Who would believe that this is also because of my bad luck? Hundreds of thousands of readers are watching this. How can I blame Zhu Yan for this? But the problem was that when Zhu Yan came, they were wiped out. Why is the timing I choose always so close? Heaven's will is playing tricks on me. Heaven's will is playing tricks on me. Zhu Yan wanted to cry but had no tears. Zhu Yan's glorious past, Zhu Yan's true. Every time, it was a huge problem with the timing. It was always when someone was about to be unlucky, or was about to be unlucky. He would go. Then, he carried the prepared black pot on his back with ease. Fate is so full of twists and turns. Zhu Yan's yin side, with all 12 great shamans participating in the battle, together with more than 20 heavenly kings of the shaman clan leading an army. They were absolutely powerful. In the demon spirit forest, all the members of the demon race, from top to bottom, from old to young, were killed without exception, because there was only one order from the great shamans: leave no one alive. The meaning of not leaving anyone alive was very clear. When the nest is overturned, no egg can remain intact. The Umno Alliance's army plowed through the demon of forest several times. Not to mention the demons, even the demon beasts of the demon of forest, including the snakes and insects hidden underground, couldn't escape this calamity and died. The great shamans said to leave no one alive. Their target is the demon race. But what if the great shamans are in a bad mood and insist that this mouse is also alive? So everyone tried their best to exterminate the demon race. For a moment, smoke rose into the sky and flames covered the ground. By the time the Wizard Alliance's army retreated from the demon spirit forest, not only was there no place to breathe, even the flowers and trees had disappeared. All of them were buried in this place. Only the great shaman of the poisonous great shaman searched back and forth 3 times, as if he had a target, but found nothing. What are you doing? Great shaman Dan Kong asked. There is still someone hiding here. There is a kind of poison somewhere, but it wasn't released by me. The great shaman of the poisonous great shaman said. As a poison master, the great shaman of the poisonous great shaman was very sensitive to this point. What do you mean? You mean someone made a move fighting poison with poison and saved some of the demon race? No, the other party's poison is also aimed at the demon race. It's not fighting poison with poison, but the 2 poisons collide and the power explodes. Then what are you looking for? That's clearly one of us. Help me send the demon race off. Is your brain always so simple? What do you think? If it's not one of us who made a move against our enemy, could it be the demon race? What you said is so reasonable that I have nothing to say. The great shaman of the poisonous great shaman expressed defeat. At this time, Zhu Yan had already run far away. He definitely couldn't find it. The great shaman of the poisonous great shaman searched everywhere, but to no avail. He collected the poison that didn't belong to him, and tasted it. He murmured. Except for the smell, this poison is really good. Without 10,000 years of precipitation and essence, it can't reach this level. Collect the spoils of war. Turn it all in. Then, return it according to the harvest of the army. The first place will return 30%. The second place will return 20%. And the last place will return 5%. The last place will lead the Heavenly King army to review. Zhu Yan went back in a daze. The process didn't matter. Although the demon race in the demonic spirit forest, the entire race, hundreds of millions of people, were all wiped out all of a sudden, which was shocking, it was nothing to Zhu Yan. After all, this guy was an ancient beast. Since the ancient times, too many races have been wiped out. However, this time, it seemed like the race that was wiped out as soon as it came into contact with the human world. Would this be the starting point of the legend of the Beast of Disaster? Please don't, please don't. Who's that guy with the sledgehammer? With one swing of the sledgehammer, millions of corpses fell. Such strength was rare even in the ancient times. It was almost on the level of the Wu people's Wu, right? If that guy finds me, what will happen to me? Will it be possible for me to escape unscathed? If I didn't consume so much of my origin energy, I might not be able to defeat him. But I should have a chance to escape unscathed, right? As for now, I don't dare to think about it. Back in front of the Sun-Moon Pass, Zhu Yan naturally reported the situation as soon as possible. Zhou Changlu and his wife were the only ones who knew Zhu Yan's identity. After hearing such shocking news, they looked at Zhu Yan strangely. Damn, so accurate? So domineering? How could Zhu Yan not know what they were thinking when he saw their expressions? He said miserably, "Uncle Zhua, this really can't be blamed on me. It's just a coincidence, just a coincidence." Zhou Changlu comforted him. Of course, this can't be blamed on anyone but you, brother Zhu. It's just a coincidence, just a coincidence. Don't take it to heart. Don't worry, don't worry. Zhu Yan breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, Zhu's father is so reasonable. He even removed the blame that has been placed on me. What a good man. Zhou Changlu coughed and said, "Brother Zhu, I'm here. Can you not call me that?" "Yes, little Zhu." Zhou Changlu was very accommodating in this regard. "Yes. Here's the thing. Our defense here is basically foolproof. It's a waste of high-end combat power for you to stay here. You're a wise man who has experienced countless battles in the Archean era," Zhou Changlu said in a low voice. "Now the Dao League's defense line is relatively critical. It's tense." Zhu Yan blinked. Why did he feel that something was wrong? Illusion? This must be an illusion. "Don't you want to go over and help them?" "I'm thinking too much. With you in charge, they won't be defeated too quickly, and we'll have enough time. Don't you think so? I believe that you definitely have the ability to turn the tide. Just your experience alone is already unmatched in this world." Zhou Changlu praised him with great sincerity. "To put it bluntly, the person I trust the most now is you. At the same time, you're also the most powerful one. Do you think you can help me with this?" Zhu Yan's body suddenly became light as a feather, saying, "No problem at all. Just tell me, when do you plan to let me go over? The war is fierce and dangerous, and the situation is deteriorating. Naturally, the sooner the better. But after you go over, you mustn't reveal your true identity. There are people from the Dao League over there, each of them. Ahem, they have a lot of problems in this regard. If you reveal your identity, they'll most likely put the blame on you." Zhou Zhanglu reminded like an old dog. I understand. Zhu Yan was pleased. Old Master Zhua is so honest and considerate of me. His words really hit the nail on the head. How many times have I been the scapegoat all these years? But now, I truly understand. Everything was because I exposed my identity. If I didn't say that I was Zhu Yan, would anyone be able to put the blame on me? Right? It was my own luck to begin with. How could they blame me for it? What kind of world is this? I understand. I'll be more careful in the future. Zhu Yan said gratefully. After so many years. Old Master Zhua, you're the first person who's been so considerate of me. They say that there are many good people in the world, but I didn't meet you until today. This is fate. You're welcome, Zhou Changlu said calmly. I'll introduce you to them now. I believe that with your help, the Dao League will have an unprecedented change. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. Remember, your safety is the most important thing. Don't put yourself in too much danger. You're going to help them not die. Understood. Zhou Changlu took out his phone with a smile. Brother Lei, how's the defense arrangement going? Sai, it's still not very optimistic. Haha. I knew it wouldn't be very optimistic on your side. I have a brother here whose cultivation base is at the peak of this world. He's almost at the peak of primordial chaos. You know that we have a lot of people on our side. It's already the best we can do to send a brother over to help you. What do you think? Is that enough? When Taoist Thunder heard this, he couldn't believe his ears. This was really a blessing from the heavens. A peak primordial chaos expert was coming over to help. That was great. We were just worried that we didn't have enough manpower. Thank you so much. Brother Zwa, you're so generous. Thank you so much. Taoist Thunder was overjoyed and thanked him profusely. Brother Zwa, you're so righteous, so selfless. You're truly too moving. Taoist Thunder couldn't wait to ask, what's this brother's surname? When will he come over? My brother's surname is Zhu, and his name is Zhan. Zhu Zhan. Zhuo Changlu looked at Zhu Yan, his eyes flashing. Zhu Yan nodded repeatedly. Yes, my name is Zhu Zhan. From now on, I'm Zhu Zhan. If anyone dares to call me Zhu Yan again, I'll fight them. Zhu Yan, the beast of disaster, from now on, get out of my way. Brother Lei, when do you think it's appropriate for him to come over? Zhuo Changlu asked. Of course, the sooner the better. Taoist Thunder said. Can he come over today? It's best if he comes today. That way, we can have more time. Good. Then I'll have him rush over this afternoon. When the time comes, he'll take my letter and go straight to you. That's great, that's great. By the way, let me tell you, Brother Lei, if my brother goes over to your side, don't let him be wronged. I definitely won't agree to that. How's that possible? We'll definitely get along very well. Ha ha ha. Then I won't say much. Let's wait for the wedding banquet 8 days later. We'll talk about it when we meet. Let's make it clear in advance. If the Tao League's gifts are too low class, I won't accept them. Don't blame me for not telling you the ugly truth, haha. Zhuo Changlu said in a joking tone. That won't do. Taoist Thunder was full of joy at this moment, so he naturally agreed without hesitation. It was obvious that this Tao League leader was in a very good mood at this moment. Therefore, on the day Zhu Yan returned to the Sun Moon Pass, he tore open the space again and rushed over to the Tao League. Yu Xingchen, who was sitting on the side, was full of confusion. Why didn't such a great expert come to the Astral Souls continent? Zhuo Changchang, you actually sent him to help the Tao Alliance. When did our relationship with the Tao League become so close? Seeing that Zhu Yan had gone far away, Yu Xingchen finally said in displeasure. What's going on? Why didn't I realize that we're rich enough to support the Tao League? Why did you send such a great expert over just like that? Cough, cough, cough. Zhuo Changlu coughed. Brother Yu. Then he transmitted his voice. Brother Yu, that brother Zhu just now is Zhu Yan. Yu Xingchen was shocked. Zhu Yan? The beast of misfortune? Zhuo Changlu nodded calmly and continued to transmit his voice. Since this guy reappeared in the mortal world, apart from staying by Xiao Duo's side, he only went to 2 realms. One of them was to visit the Wang family, and then the Wang family was wiped out by the heavenly tribulation. The other was the demonic forest. He just came here today, and I asked him to go to the demon race to get some information. However, not long after he left, the entire demon race in the demonic forest was wiped out by the Umno Alliance. 12 grand shamans, most of the heavenly kings of the Umno Alliance, the elite army of the Wu people, and the 3 strongest forces of the Wu people wiped out the demonic forest in one day. Hiss! Yu Xingchen gasped, and a layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. His face turned pale. So powerful? The beast of misfortune is so domineering. There's too much evidence in front of you. Do you dare to try? It's better to believe it than not. Then let's die together. Yes, you're right. It's better to let this demon go to the Tao League to help. We can't afford it. You did the right thing. Speaking of which, it's really quite dangerous. Zhu Yan was the beast of misfortune in the legends. Who would have thought that it would appear in front of them one day? Eating a meal in the Wang family. The Wang family was wiped out. Going to the demonic forest to get information. The entire demon race was wiped out. Who wouldn't be afraid? Who wouldn't be afraid? If the demonic beasts were to act up at the Sun Moon Pass, it was terrifying to think about. Zhu Yan was a great soldier. What was a great soldier? The demon race in the demonic forest had fully proved what a great soldier was. Who would dare to keep such a thing around? If that's the case, the demon race should have returned from the Tao League this time, Yu Xingchen said confidently. Everyone was puzzled by his words. Yu Dongtian, Yun Zhonghu, Qin Sha, Sword Monarch, Saber Demon, and the others were all confused. Why do you say that? Why is the emperor so confident? Do you have some special source of information? Yu Xingchen said deeply. Just now, I suddenly had a feeling in my heart. I clearly felt that the demon race would return from the Tao League this time. It can't be wrong. Everyone was instantly impressed. It turned out that the emperor had reached such a high level. We didn't feel anything at all. So Xiaoduo collected everything as fast as he could, and then rushed back to the space exterminating pagoda. Zhou Xiaonian had rested in the space exterminating pagoda for more than a day, almost 2 days. Her physical body had basically recovered. But when she saw Zhou Xiaoduo coming back, her face turned red. She hid in the bedroom and closed the door with a bang. She leaned against the door, her heart still beating fast. Whenever she thought of that night, she was so embarrassed that she didn't know what to do. That little dog is really, he doesn't know how to be considerate of me at all. She was in a daze when she felt someone hugging her waist. She couldn't help but scream, "You! How did you get in?" Zhou Xiaoduo pursed his lips. He thought to himself, this is my space exterminating pagoda, a treasure that is bound to my soul. And here I am a god. I can appear wherever I want. It's just passing through a door. What's there to be afraid of? But he didn't say it out loud. He said, I missed you so I came in. It works when one's heart is sincere. Zhou Xiaonian's body went soft. She said, let go of me. Yes, yes. Zhou Xiaoduo hugged her slender waist and sniffed her hair. He couldn't help but feel restless. He said, Nian Mao, I'll make a few dishes tonight. Let's drink a few cups. Drink a few cups. Drink. Zhou Xiaonian was so embarrassed that she couldn't take it anymore. Get out of my sight. You sound so good. Zhou Xiaoduo chuckled. There was an indescribable ripple on his face. Zhou Xiaonian bared her fangs and brandished her claws. She turned around and wanted to attack, but her vital part was grabbed. She couldn't help but scream. That night, Zhou Xiaoduo pestered her relentlessly. He tried to reason with her with his emotions. He also tried to persuade her with his pleas. Finally, the two of them once again drank 2 cups of wine that were as incompatible as fire and water. Since Zhou Xiaonian had already recovered, Zhou Xiaoduo no longer controlled himself. His head was in an orderly manner, and he advanced and retreated according to the rules. You don't understand. But all couples in the world are like this. Why would I lie to you? If you don't believe me, you can check on the internet. Isn't all knowledge like this? Besides, no one else knows about this. Aya, you're so troublesome. I'll check for you. Look. It's written in a book, right? In ancient times, this kind of picture was only available in the palace. Why would I lie to you? You're so smart, I can't lie to you. Actually, it's easy to understand. It's just that I'm still very shy and can't let go. Actually, this is a very normal thing between couples. But everything has a beginning. What's wrong with this? It's okay. I can understand. We can also wait. Look, let's start with the simplest way this. If I lie to you, I won't be able to get on your bed as punishment. Is that okay? Look, I've already made such a vicious oath. I'm definitely not lying to you. Okay, then you. And so, the next morning. Zhou Xiaonian couldn't get up again. Li Chenglong and the others' excited voices came from outside. Zhou, are you there? Zhou, there's good news, great news. Zhou Xiaoduo sighed. He put on his clothes and went out. He sealed the bedroom and walked out. He frowned and said, Why are you all shouting? Look at all of you. You're all adults, but you don't even know how to be polite. Li Chenglong chuckled and gathered around. We've been in Epiphany for 2 or 3 days. We've reaped great rewards this time. There seems to be an outline of the path ahead. I asked around, and it seems like everyone has reaped great rewards. What about you, Zhou? Of course I've reaped great rewards too. In fact, I've reaped even more rewards than all of you. Zhou Xiaoduo humphed. I'm already at the Tao integration pinnacle stage, and I'm about to compress my vital energy. What about all of you? How far have you progressed? Tao integration pinnacle stage? Pinnacle stage. Li Chenglong and the others were all dumbstruck. How? How could he be so fast? Didn't he break through later than all of us? How could this be? Li Chenglong and the others couldn't help but feel a sense of inferiority. The fastest among them was only at the initial stage. There was still a long way to go before they could reach the intermediate stage. It was said that they still needed 7 or 8 more times to gain enlightenment, as well as a deeper understanding of their cultivation base. After that, they would need to pass a few more trials before they could reach the intermediate stage. But how did Zhua progress so quickly? Chapter 1274. Boss, how did you cultivate? How did you progress so fast? Tell us and let's see if we can copy it. Everyone was surprised and envious. Diligence. That's diligence. Zhua Xiaoduo rolled his eyes and said, when you were shouting, I was cultivating. When you were sleeping, I was still cultivating. When you were playing, I was still cultivating. When you were dating, I was still cultivating. Plus, my aptitude is better than yours. He said resentfully, look at you guys. I gave you such good conditions, but you guys are still so lazy. Now that the truth was in front of them, Zhua Xiaoduo immediately scolded everyone until they lowered their heads and were speechless. Even if they felt that something was not right, Zhua Xiaoduo's strength and progress were right in front of them. He was indeed more hardworking than them. Otherwise, how could he improve so fast? What a shame. Too much shame. Although they had worked so hard that they were about to vomit blood. But it was an indisputable fact that their progress was not fast enough. Hurry up and go back to cultivate. The war is about to start. Look at all of you slacking off like sheep. Zhua Xiaoduo waved his hand and said, go, go, go. Everyone bared their teeth and left. Let's work harder. I don't believe that we can't catch up. Everyone was determined. Zhua Xiaoduo chased everyone away and returned to the room again. He smiled and said, Miss Cat, come back to sleep. The bed is so comfortable. With such a pleasant way to cultivate, who would be so stupid to get dirty? Bo, you're asleep? It's okay if you're asleep, as long as I'm not asleep. For a period of time, Zhua Xiaoduo began to pester Zhua Xiaonian in the name of cultivating. He was extremely diligent in his cultivation. Of course, it was the practice of dual cultivation. Basically, he had to cultivate every day many times a day. Zhua Xiaoduo would cultivate anytime and anywhere. It was very hard, very diligent, but never tiring. Zhua Xiaoduo was sweating profusely as he practiced, but he still felt gratified. He felt that he had made great progress, and could not help but become more and more excited. His enthusiasm for practicing martial arts grew higher and higher. However, under Zhua Xiaonian's strong protest, Zhua Xiaoduo finally changed it to 3 times a day after getting a bunch of promises. Zhua Xiaonian had no choice but to compromise. If she continued to cultivate like this, her cultivation would definitely improve, but the problem was, she was afraid that she would not be able to get out of bed day by day. That kind of exhaustion, that kind of extreme exhaustion, was simply like a nightmare. Every morning for the past few days, his legs were trembling. How was he supposed to train like this? Cultivation was not only about the cultivation of one's body in true essence, but also the martial arts techniques of one's hands and body. In his current state, he could barely hold a sword. Therefore, the rules had to be changed, and they had to be restrained. After changing the rules, Zhua Xiaonian could finally get out of bed every morning. Every afternoon, she could also practice swordsmanship, various techniques, and so on. Another more obvious benefit was that when she got out of bed and cultivated every day, she had a new feeling and experience. She had made great progress. As for Zhua Xiaoduo, he was in high spirits because of the good news. His cultivation had always shown a trend of leaps and bounds. Moreover, he personally felt that he was already an adult. Therefore, sometimes he began to deliberately show that he was steady in his actions. For example, he often put his hands behind his back, with a light smile on his face, and looked mature, steady, elegant, and at ease. The above were all personal images that Father Zhua had painted based on his own image. However, every time Li Qinglong and the others saw this, they would feel a chill in their hearts. After all, Zhua Xiaoduo's image was deeply ingrained in their hearts. Now that Zhua deliberately created this image, it made them panic and fear in their hearts, that they even suspected that Zhua's cultivation had progressed too fast. So much so that he had gone mad. Otherwise, How could he make such a scene? After all, when this state appeared on Father Zhua, it was graceful and elegant. However, when it was on Zhua Xiaoduo, it was like trying to paint a tiger, but ended up looking like a dog. They really could not bear to look at it. How could they not be frightened? When Zhua Xiaonian finally got rid of someone, and came out to resume her cultivation, everyone gathered together to learn from each other. This time, Li Chenglong and the others felt that they were hit harder, that they found that it had only been a year and a half since they last saw each other. The flow of time in the space exterminating tower. But Zhua Xiaoduo and Zhua Xiaonian's cultivation had improved to a level that no one could catch up to. Originally, they could still see their backs, and were confident that they could catch up with them. However, now, they could only see a trail of dust behind them. Even the smoke and dust behind them could not be seen. How can they be so fast and so exaggerated? Are there really no hidden dangers at this rate of improvement? Li Chenglong and the others were immediately anxious. Then they cultivated even harder. Even with their cultivation level of mid-stage Dao integration stage, they could cultivate until they fell asleep. This kind of training was simply heaven-defying. Then, they gradually found that Zhua Xiaoduo and Zhua Xiaonian were clearly not as hardworking as they claimed. Every time they came out, they would cultivate and cultivate. Most of the time, they would get used to improving their moves and techniques, and sharpening their techniques. Many times, the two of them would even hold hands, and take a stroll or talk in the forest filled with spirit plants and spirit seedlings. They were clearly living a very comfortable life. As the saying went, there are hundreds of flowers in spring and the moon in autumn. There are cool winds in summer and snow in winter. Their days were sweet and happy, but why was the gap between them getting bigger and bigger day by day? What kind of logic was this? Everyone was simply puzzled. This was too unfair. 8 days passed like this. In the morning, Zhua Xiaoduo went out, and saw a message from Wu Yuding on his phone. Come. The wedding is the day after tomorrow. Let's go. Let's go. Zhua Xiaoduo felt a surge of happiness, and cheered from the bottom of his heart. Zhua Xiaonian blushed. She sat up with difficulty, and put on her clothes. She stood up and walked 2 steps. However, she felt that her legs were weak. Don't do anything for the next 2 days. Zhua Xiaonian said very sternly. Okay. Let's hurry. We'll talk about the rest when we reach the Sun-Moon Pass. In the afternoon of this day, the 15 of them rode the wind, and soared into the sky with great momentum. They soared into the 9 heavens, and the wind and clouds surged in the vast sky. It was as if there were giant dragons, and the wind and clouds were meeting. They swayed along the rolling clouds, all the way to the south. Principal Yi Teacher 1 Hidden Dragon High School were going. In the sky, with Zhua Xiaoduo and Zhua Xiaonian taking the lead, the others split into 2 wings. Like a huge sharp arrow, they cut through the sky and rushed to the south. On this day, the sky above Fenghai was filled with colorful clouds. It was magnificent. The shadows of 15 people appeared in the sky one by one to bid farewell to the Hidden Dragon High School. Below, countless people could clearly see it. It was a magnificent sight. This was also the origin of the myths and legends that were passed down through the ages. The legend was first written in this day. This scene was coincidentally seen by a famous painter. He was inspired. When he went back, he recorded this scene in a painting, and it would be passed down through the ages. 7 to the left, 8 to the right, 8 to the south, magnificent and unparalleled in the cold sky. Who in the world can be a match for them? 15 sovereigns are young. It was titled, 15 Sovereigns Battle Map. This painting became the #1 treasure painting in the whole continent. It was bought by Yi Changqing at a high price, and hidden in the Hidden Dragon High School. It was the treasure of the Hidden Dragon High School. In the future, if one wanted to take a look, they would have to pay a hefty fee. Cultivators below the Sky Realm had no right to see it. Yes, students of the Hidden Dragon High School only needed to pay a certain amount of credits to see the legend. Because of this, countless geniuses gathered at the Hidden Dragon High School. They only wanted to catch a glimpse of the big picture, and see the legend. Let's not talk about this later. In the Hidden Dragon High School, Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian stood on the roof, and waved their hands. Their eyes were full of blessings and reluctance. There was a strong sense of melancholy, and also extreme gratification. Hidden Dragon High School, First Grade, Class 1. All the students looked at their former classmates in the sky. Everyone's face was solemn, and their hearts were silent. Meng Zhongjun looked at Jin Piapiao's graceful figure in the sky. Her white clothes fluttered in the wind. Her peerless beauty was like ice and snow. He couldn't help but sigh softly. There was an indescribable sense of loss in his heart. Not long ago, they could still stand side by side. But now, he could only look up to her. Hao Han was beside him and said lightly, "In the end, she still sneaked in. Haha. I don't know what price she paid." Meng Zhongjun suddenly felt an indescribable anger and loss. He snorted heavily, and didn't even look at Hao Han. He picked up his long spear, and left the school to gain experience. What he didn't know was that when Li Chenglong planned to build a small team led by Zhou Xiaoduo, Meng Zhongjun was the first choice. Because of this, he was even placed in front of Gao Qiao, Zhen Piapiao, and Pai Bao by Li Chenglong. Because Meng Zhongjun possessed a very strong leadership ability. Moreover, his aptitude was also one of the best. He had a bright future. But fate made fools of people. Or perhaps it was a man-made disaster. That it was because Hao Han kept stirring up trouble by his side that messed up Meng Zhongjun's state of mind. This candidate, who should have been at the front of the team, couldn't even enter the team in the end. At this point, the gap between the two of them was like heaven and earth. And it was impossible for them to reach the same level. With Meng Zhongjun's current cultivation and strength, even if 10,000 of him were to join forces, he would no longer be a match for Zhen Piapiao, who was the weakest in the team. It had to be said that this was a very, very regretful thing. Sometimes, making the right friends could really bring you straight to the clouds. But if you made the wrong friends, even if you were in the clouds, you could be pulled down and fall into the dust. You would be trapped in a pile of mud and waste your time with him. One who stays with ink will be stained, and one who stays with pigs will stink. The sun and the moon closed. The wind blew fiercely. Countless large flags fluttered in the wind. From time to time they would be blown into a straight line. The north wind whistled and the clouds surged. At this moment, countless wedding venues had already been prepared. Countless banquets had also been prepared, and were only waiting for the moment to start. This wasn't a day or two of preparation, but several days of careful preparation. Countless red cloth and colored silk also wandered in the wind in the air. It was a joyous atmosphere. At this moment, many high-level cultivators had already rushed over from all directions to congratulate them. For today, the Wu people and the human race had been fighting for many years. From today onwards, the flags and drums would cease. All the follow-up matters would wait until after the wedding. Everything in the continent had to make way for this wedding. The number one genius of the Astral Souls continent, the son of the Sky Inspector Minister, and the adopted daughter of the Sky Inspector Minister, were getting married today, on such a big day where everyone was celebrating. Who would be so blind as to come out and cause trouble? Zhou Changlu, Wu Yuding, and the others were busy welcoming and greeting the guests. At this moment, countless great figures that only existed in legends were arriving one after another. Relying on the rallying power of the Sky Surveyor throne, all the top experts of the three continents were gathered together for this wedding. Not a single person was allowed to slip through the net. Even Chan Sheng, who was aloof from worldly affairs, came from afar and rushed over with the West Sea Shaman. At some point in time, the Sun and Moon Pass had been overgrown with grasshopper plants. The greenery extended all the way to the horizon. Small flowers swayed in the wind. They were like smiling faces blooming, adding a touch of brilliance to this grand event. This unprecedented grand event attracted the attention of all the top forces in the world. Perhaps in the eyes of ordinary people, they would feel that it was unfair, and would be angry because of it. Even if it's the marriage of the minister's son, it shouldn't be so grand. TSK, the second generation is awesome. The entire continent is celebrating this wedding. I can only cheer 666. Reincarnation is really a skill. I admit that I'm jealous. A wedding, so many people are involved. 3 continents are giving gifts at the same time. TSK, the minister is really good at making money. I still remember the legend of the minister, the 1 meter higher sky. Could it be that it's not a lie? It had to be said that wherever the sun shone, no matter what era, what dynasty, or what crisis it was, there would always be countless lemon spirits and countless contrarians jumping up and down. There were also countless people who had no sense of shame. Because of their negative emotions, they were jealous, they were causing trouble, and they were saying things just to stir up other people's negative emotions. However, there was no exception. None of these jealous people were qualified to attend the wedding ceremony, because people with bad intentions would never be able to reach the top and set foot on the peak. This was also the fairest place in any era or dynasty. Unlike these jealous people, everyone who came, or those who had some brains, would naturally understand. This time it was not just a wedding. The wedding was just a prelude. The most important thing was the meaning of this gathering. Combined with the announcements from the 3 continents, the news of the imminent return of the devil race had already been made clear. At this time, it was necessary to have such a grand gathering, to announce to the 3 continents that we have enough experts, and we have enough strength. No matter what kind of enemy comes, we can deal with them and eliminate their threat. The people don't need to panic and don't need to be frightened. The rear of the 3 continents would remain stable and peaceful. This was not to show off, but it was necessary, because there were always some people in this world who couldn't feel safe as long as they couldn't see them. These people were not a minority. Once they felt insecure, they might do other things. If I'm not good, then I want others to accompany me. After the war, everyone would feel that holding such a wedding for Zhuo was a well-deserved and wise decision. It had far-reaching significance, and was far from enough. But at present, at this moment, no one had such an understanding. However, if one were to look at the current scene, it would seem that everyone had come to attend the wedding. There were a total of 99 accountants, each occupying a large table, each occupying a seat, and each of them was accompanied by more than a dozen assistants to collect the gifts. Except for the gifts of the Heavenly King level and above, which were presented at the wedding site, everyone else would be led to the seats arranged by the ushers after handing in the gifts. This seat could be said to be a carrot and a pit. As long as you sat down, your divine sense would be connected to the seat, and then a gift would appear in front of you. In these few days, as long as you sat in this seat, you wouldn't have to worry about anything, whether it was eating, drinking, playing, or doing whatever you wanted. Even if you stood up and went out for a walk, no one would be able to sit in your seat. In this way, the possibility of the troublemakers not being able to find you was avoided to the greatest extent. And that gift in return was even more valuable than the gifts that many people had given, the kind that was much more valuable. As for the grievances between them, those things, no one even mentioned anything like, can't take revenge today, can't do that. These words must not be spoken. Who would dare to cause trouble at the wedding of the minister's son? Do you still want to be well? Even if a person who could hold half a caddy of alcohol drank 10 caddies, he would definitely not be so drunk that he would lose his mind. Countless people flew here and there, and after they landed, countless vegetables, star beast meat, and demonic beast meat fell down like small mountains. Then, they were immediately dragged away and digested without a trace. Wine jars that were as big as mountains fell from the sky one by one. They were then collected and cleaned up in an instant. All the cooks of the 4 armies were gathered together, forming a camp that was comparable to 1,000,000 soldiers. And the sky above this camp was raining nonstop. Rain of wine, rain of meat, rain of vegetables. Heavy rain, heavy rain, heavy rain, super heavy rain. At this time, the people who had already sat down saw the strange scene of rain pouring down, and many people's mouths almost split open. Fuck, this is really an eye-opener. How many ingredients and resources are needed to supply this? Just in these 2 minutes, no less than 100,000 tons of wine have fallen. Not to mention the meat and vegetables. I think there's 1,000,000 tons of meat. Oh my God. How many people are needed to receive this? I think your brain doesn't know how to think. What kind of place is this? This is the Sun Moon Pass. Disregarding everything else, the 4 armies are still here even though the front lines have stopped fighting. How much consumption is needed just for them alone? I have nothing to say. In this situation, I only have one sentence to say. Apart from this sentence, even with my knowledge of the past and present, I really can't think of any other words to describe this. What sentence? This sentence is awesome. Too awesome. Fuck you. Who doesn't know how to describe a dog like you? Zhua Chonglu and Wu Yuding stood side by side in the middle of the sky above the Sun-Moon Pass. If one's cultivation was not at the Tao integration stage or above, it would be very difficult to discover their presence. However, as long as one's cultivation was at the Tao integration stage or above, they would be able to sense the presence of the couple, who were like the only stars in the night sky. Naturally, they would immediately fly over to greet them. Minister, congratulations, congratulations. Same to you. Thank you very much. This is just a small gift to show my respect. This is too extravagant. Let's register. The people who had already taken their seats looked on in horror, as the mythical figures flew to an empty place with a respectful expression. They bowed, smiled apologetically, and exchanged greetings. Then, they landed with a face full of glory and satisfaction that after registering their gifts, they were led down to find their seats. The minister must be there. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people going over to greet him. I see. Of course, this should be the case. Everyone instantly understood. It's a pity that my cultivation is too low. Even the minister can't see him. Sigh will see him in a while. When the wedding day comes, the minister will definitely appear. Besides, the minister has no choice. If everyone sees him and goes up to shake his hand one by one, the minister probably won't be able to lift his sword today. That's billions of people. Ha ha ha. That's true. If billions or even tens of billions of people go up to shake his hand, no matter how high the minister's cultivation is, he will probably be shaved bald. You really dare to say that? Hee hee. It's so noisy. The minister probably didn't hear it. It's a big day. If he heard, he won't argue with you. The north wind blew. In the sky, there seemed to be a sharp arrow flying through the air. One of the four great generals, Nan Zhengqian, flew up. He was wearing a golden helmet and golden armor. He suddenly enlarged in the sky. The golden light was dazzling. He was 10,000 feet tall, like a god descending to the earth. He laughed loudly and said, "The bridegroom is here. The bride is here. Everyone get ready." Boom, boom, boom. Cannon salutes began to sound from all directions. Instantly the sky shook. Countless cannon salutes rang through the sky. The sky was dyed black. It was so dark that one couldn't see his fingers in front of him. First, he created an artificial night sky. Then colorful fireworks shot up into the sky. In the sky, they bloomed brightly. In broad daylight, he created the beautiful effect of fireworks under the boundless night sky. Everyone exclaimed in satisfaction, and exclaimed in amazement. Just this move alone was quite thoughtful, high-end, and classy. Chapter 1275. The rumbling sounds were endless. High in the sky, the firecrackers sounded like hundreds of flowers blooming together. They were beautiful, dazzling, and lasting for a long time. Everyone raised their heads to watch such a grand scene. His eyes were filled with infatuation and envy. She was simply too beautiful. Even though everyone present was a lord of a place, a hero of a force, or a first-class master in this world, they couldn't help but be moved. After a long while, the sound of fireworks finally came to an end, leaving only darkness in the sky. At this moment, the sky in the north was suddenly torn open, and sunlight shone in. Zhua Xiaoduo and Zhua Xiaoyan arrived at this time and crashed into it. The strange phenomenon in the sky just now was caused by a group of powerful figures, using a small trick to seal the space. As a result, Zhua Xiaoduo and the others didn't know what was going on. By the time they arrived, they had just finished their work and tore open an opening, allowing the groom and bride-to-be to enter and officially make their entrance. As for Li Chenglong and the others, they were led away from the other direction. And in this way, it gave everyone the feeling that this man and woman, the bride and groom, were like angels, bringing light, brilliance, light, and even hope. In addition to their outstanding appearances, The man was so handsome and confident, and the woman was so beautiful. Just as the sky suddenly opened, and the light of dawn shone on the world again, that everyone had the same feeling. They saw immortals. There was also that full lovey-dovey meal that was enough to fill anyone's stomach. In the sky, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian flew in hand, without knowing what was going on. Zhuo Xiaoduo said something, and Zhuo Xiaonian had a gentle and bright smile on her face. This smile caused everyone's hearts to tremble violently. It was so pure and beautiful. Nan Zhengxian wanted to play a prank on them. At this moment he suddenly yelled, "Is the bride beautiful?" Her voice undoubtedly stirred the hearts of countless people below. Many of them subconsciously shouted, "Beautiful." Many people, many high-level practitioners, formed a sound wave that soared to the sky. It actually rolled up the bride and groom, who were still in a daze, and threw them out into the sky. Ha 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 ha. The countless old prostitutes below were elated when they saw this scene. They slapped their thighs and laughed loudly. How could Zhuo Xiaoduo not know that they had been set up? However, on such a joyous occasion, such a harmless little joke was not a big deal. They slowly floated down according to the original momentum, their expressions calm, without the slightest hint of panic. The two of them flew leisurely, and finally landed in front of Zhuo Changlu. Zhuo Xiaoduo was tall and slender, with one hand supporting Zhuo Xiaonian, and the other hand behind his back. He looked extremely handsome and dashing. Countless old fellows roared with laughter again. They were all old foxes. How could they not see that this kid was deliberately acting cool? Oh, Nephew Gu's acting cool is 10 out of 10. I gave him 9. 9, but the final 0. 1 was deducted, because he was too pretentious. Going too far is as bad as falling short. Going too far is as bad as falling short. He's really good at acting cool. Ho ho ho. Acting cool so skillfully. It's really a family tradition. The father is a hero. The son is a good man. There's a successor. Ha 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 ha. The jeering just now was led by someone, and everyone participated in it. However, those who dared to make such an unscrupulous joke now had to be like Zhuo Changlu's old brothers. Only those who were loyal subordinates had the guts and qualifications to do so. Even a joke had to have the qualifications to do so. Not everyone could joke as they pleased in public. And those who could make such an unscrupulous joke about their son in front of the sky inspecting minister must have a high status in the 3 continents. Otherwise, their guilty conscience would be too heavy to bear. Zhuo Zhonglu scolded them with a smile. You shameless old men. Even though it's our child's big day, you can't change your bad habit of being rude. I'm telling you, if you don't give enough gifts, I won't let you off. I'll pull out your tendons and peel off your skin. Zhuo Zhonglu scolded them with a smile. You're a bunch of shameless old men. The group of old fellows laughed mischievously. Boss, don't worry. This time, I've sold my bone marrow so that Nephew Gu can regain some face. Another person scolded. How much is your bone marrow worth? Do you think I don't know that you robbed the Wild Blade General a few days ago? Hee, I wasn't robbing. I just mentioned it and Xiao Ru and Meng Ru gave me a space ring. It was disrespectful of me to refuse, but I deserved it. Deserved it my ass. If you hadn't been holding on to their weak points for thousands of years, would they have given it to you willingly? Suddenly, someone interrupted with a pale face. What nonsense are you talking about? We don't have any weak points. You. Don't make us look innocent. It was the Wild Blade General Tai Meng Ru. Ioyo. Bye-bye face, you think you're innocent? Dan Xiaoru. He shouted. Quickly come out and explain. Where did our Wild Blade General's innocence go to? The white-haired heavenly immortal, Dan Xiaoru, appeared and said angrily. Shut your damn beak. You 10,000-year-old bachelor, senior single dog. What are you showing off for? So much dog food today can't fill your empty stomachs. This sentence of 10,000-year-old bachelor, senior single dog, was a fatal blow. The faces of the few old generals twitched as they looked at Dan Xiaoru fiercely. Dan Xiaoru was not afraid. She pointed her finger at them one by one. Single dog. Single dog. Single dog. And the 3 of you. Single dog. Single dog. You actually have the face to mock us husband and wife. Where do you single dogs get your courage? Do you believe that the dog food will burst your stomachs? That. The group of old fellows retreated in defeat. In an instant, they were defeated like a collapsing mountain. They were completely defeated. Zhuo Xiaoduo almost couldn't hold back his laughter. Luckily, he didn't laugh out loud. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape with a pig's cry. How valiant! And at this moment, an inexplicable sense of familiarity suddenly surged. He couldn't help but blurt out, "Little Rabbit Lawn?" Back then, at the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts competition, the little rabbit Lawn who killed the adopted daughter of the king of the Central Plains, Xiao Junyi, was this person? Zhuo Xiaoduo was sure that he didn't recognize the wrong person. There was no doubt that it was this person. Dan Xiaoru was stunned when she heard this. Her pretty face twisted. Just now, when she came out, she didn't control the change in her voice. The main thing was that she didn't pay attention. She didn't expect that the minister's memory was so good. They had only met once, and they didn't even talk face to face. But he remembered it so clearly. "Oh, big nephew, you have a good memory," Dan Xiaoru said with a smile. She admitted it directly and naturally. Zhuo Xiaoduo was stunned. "Really?" Then, he turned to look at the frenzied blade General Tai Mingru. His face twisted. "Then you are Tai Xiaoniao?" Tai Mingru laughed at first. Then she was a little embarrassed. She said with resentment, "The Heavenly King of the Right has a good name. You Dongtian are looking up at the sky. I won't go over. Damn it. Each of you is shameless enough to call me big brother and big nephew. What should I do? I've been high and mighty all my life, and I plan to continue in the future. But now that this little guy is married, I'm actually one generation lower than you? What right do you have to call uncles a big brother? Each of you is clearly much younger than me. This is so fucking depressing." Thinking of that person, because his disciple was also Uncle Zhuo's daughter, he was actually one generation younger than him. This was even more depressing. Fuck, I've been fighting with my seniority recently. But he didn't want to provoke those old bitches. How could these old bitches let him go? They all thought that this might be their only chance to take advantage of the Heavenly King of the Right. How could they let it go? They were all people who had been through life and death for thousands of times. Why would they be afraid of the Heavenly King of the Right's revenge? If they didn't use the benefits, it would be expired. So, the group of old bitches pointed at the Heavenly King of the Right and said to Zhuo Xiaoduo, "Big nephew, that's your brother Xiaoyu. Hurry up and say hello." Yu Dongtian's face darkened on the spot. The meaning of this sentence couldn't be more obvious. At this moment, he was infinitely envious of Yin Zhonghu and his wife. Originally, Yu Dongtian was the one who arranged the seats inside, was responsible for monitoring the scene, and was in charge of regulating the situation. But Yu Dongtian found it troublesome, so he habitually threw the responsibility to Yin Zhonghu. Now, Yin Zhonghu was working diligently on the other side, while he was casually joining in the fun, that he actually forgot that there was a fatal problem of seniority here. Now it was completely awkward. Zhuo Xiaoduo didn't understand what was going on. He stepped forward with a smile and said, "Hello, Brother Xiaoyu. Hello, Heavenly King of the Right." First, he called him Brother Xiaoyu. Naturally, it was a family tradition to show that the two families were close. Then, he called him Heavenly King of the Right. It was to show his respect for the outstanding contributions and achievements of the Heavenly King of the Right over the years. Yes. Hello, Xiaoduo. Yu Dongtian responded cordially. Then, he saw a group of old bitches standing in a row with their chests puffed out and their bellies puffed out. They all grinned happily and said, "Big nephew, you only saw your brother Xiaoyu. There are so many uncles here, but you didn't come over to greet us. After you're done being intimate with your brother, it's our turn." Yu Dongtian gritted his teeth and said, "All of you just wait. So be it. Who cares about a junior like you?" Everyone didn't care. How many times have we been thrown the responsibility by Heavenly King of the Right over the years? It's rare for us to mess with you. Do you think we won't be merciful? But even though everyone was joking around, they still had a sense of propriety. For example, they only joked about Zhuo Xiaoduo and didn't joke about Zhuo Xiaonian. Everyone's sense of propriety could be seen from this. Jokes about the bride, no matter how close they were, should not be made casually. In the face of the Heavenly King of the Right, who was furious but didn't dare to do anything. The group of old bitches all grinned. It felt so good. You also have a day like this. Chapter 1276. The group of people laughed and joked for a long time before Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian left with Wu Yuding. Zhuo Changlu stayed in the same place, chatting with a group of old friends. The atmosphere was extremely lively. Let's go and see your wedding dresses. Wu Yuding smiled and pulled Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian into the house. Zhuo Xiaonian blushed and lowered her head as she quickly followed, not saying a word for a long time. Damn kitty, Wu Yuding said with a smile. You two have improved very quickly. It seems that the effect of the dual cultivation is very good. Zhuo Xiaonian became more and more ashamed. She plunged into Wu Yuding's arms, twisted her waist and stomped her feet. Mom, you set me up. How did I set you up? Wu Yuding stared at her. The effect of the wine. You should have told me earlier. That night I drank a lot. Zhuo Xiaonian's muffled voice came from her arms. It's so embarrassing. Wu Yuding pretended to be surprised and said, How could it be? Didn't Xiao Duo tell you the effect of the wine? I told him again and again to tell you that the wine is good, but you can't drink it casually. Zhuo Xiaonian raised her head in disbelief, then turned around and looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo with murderous eyes. She gritted her teeth and said, Dog. Duh. Zhuo Xiaoduo was stunned. Mom, you really are my biological mother. Even if it's not all your fault, can't you look at the time, place, and occasion? So you can't blame me for this. It's someone's fault. Wu Yuding went all the way. She directly removed all the blame from herself and put all the blame on her son. Zhuo Xiaonian naturally believed her. She became more and more murderous and targeted. Zhuo Xiaoduo was speechless. He was tongue-tied. He was always eloquent, but he was speechless for a long time. What happened to being his biological mother? How could she betray him so heartlessly? Damn, just you wait. Zhuo Xiaonian said angrily. That. Zhuo Xiaoduo sighed and said helplessly. It's our wedding night. I'll listen to you. I'll drink with you as long as you want. Zhuo Xiaonian blushed. In your dreams. It's not in my dreams. If you don't believe me, you can ask our mother. Between husband and wife that. Right? Everything can be done. Everything must be done. Seeing Zhuo Xiaonian's blushing face, Zhuo Xiaoduo immediately turned into his self-righteous mode. Wu Yuding was defeated. She really did not expect her son to be so thick-skinned. He had clearly been forced into a corner, but in the blink of an eye, he had regrouped. There was even a large army pressing down on the border, and he was aggressive. This hereditary ability was really strong. She was young and didn't know anything back then. Zhuo Changlu seemed to have said the same thing. When she understood those things later, decades had passed. Now, Zhuo Xiaoduo was simply self-taught. He was like a textbook example. He directly said what his father said back then without blinking. He didn't even blush or pant. It was extraordinarily natural. Zhuo Xiaonian blushed and asked Wu Yuding for advice. Mom, is that so? Wu Yuding coughed. At this critical moment, she naturally had to side with her own son. Daughter, since you've already fallen into the pit, just stay in the pit. Xiao Duo is right. Between husband and wife, the pleasure of the boudoir, eating and drinking, everything is normal between men and women. There's really no need to be shy when two couples are together. There's still many years to go. There's really no need to be shy. The sooner you get used to it, the more comfortable you'll be. There are no outsiders. Wu Yuding said solemnly. Zhuo Xiaonian. I see. I thought Doggy did it on purpose. Don't worry. It's normal for couples to get along. Your father and I used to be like this in the past. As long as you two get along well, isn't it better than anything else? Wu Yuding explained softly. She was using her and father's experience as an example. Zhuo Xiaonian blushed and lowered her head. Her heart was at ease. She thought to herself, so Doggy's strange requests are normal for couples. Then, in the future. Zhuo Xiaoduo smiled wretchedly. Am I right? I didn't lie to you, did I? It's normal for couples to have sex in the boudoir. How can it be so crooked? Zhuo Xiaonian snorted and rolled her eyes. Her pretty face turned even redder, which made her even more beautiful. After that, Zhuo Xiaoduo went to try on the clothes. Zhuo Xiaonian followed Wu Yuting to try on the wedding dress. Then, they began to take all kinds of photos and other complicated things. Finally, Wu Yuting had prepared everything in advance. There was no need to be in a hurry. In the afternoon, the 7 swords of the Dao Alliance led many high-ranking members of the Dao Alliance to arrive. Not long after they arrived, the flood which led her brothers, and arrived with great momentum. With the arrival of the 2 groups of people, the sun and the moon came to an end. The soldiers' boisterous laughter fell straight to the bottom line. They were the real top fighters, the people at the peak of the world. Countless soldiers looked at the 12 great shamans of the Umno Alliance in the sky. Their gazes were unprecedentedly complicated. It was a kind of hatred and reverence for the strong. And respect. Respect from the bottom of their hearts. In the hearts of every cultivator, there was a common idea. Or it could be said that it was a very pure idea. It didn't matter if they were friends or foes. Those who didn't submit to the strong were guilty. If someone was stronger than you, there was something about them that was better than you. This was indisputable. You had to submit to them. Even if you still had to fight to the death when you met them in the future. Even if you still had to sacrifice your life in the hands of the strong. You could hate them, but you couldn't submit to them. That was because their current cultivation base was their current dream. Their future path might be a road sign that they would never be able to reach. There was a burst of mist in the air, and the figures of the powerful cultivators all disappeared. Only then did sounds return. However, it was obvious that everyone was speaking in hushed voices. The Dao integration stage and above cultivators of the Umno Alliance, the Heavenly King stage cultivators, and the generals of the various armies all landed. They went to find their old rivals to curse and drink. Not long after, the entire Sun-Moon Pass once again resounded with the sound of people cursing at each other. Speaking of which, the banquet arrangements were very interesting. It could even be said that they were quite ingenious. Under Zhuo Chonglu's insistence, every table had the same configuration. 4 people from the astral souls, 4 powerful cultivators from the Umno Alliance, and 2 cultivators from the Dao Alliance. The atmosphere at every table was extremely lively. The powerful cultivators of the Wu people were also treated differently when they went to register and present their gifts. The accountants didn't even look up. That's it. They have the nerve to attend a banquet with such a meager gift? So shabby. Aren't all the people of the Wu people extremely muscular? Even their brains are full of muscles. What do they know about etiquette? A gift is enough. What else can they do? They pinched their noses and accepted the gifts with disdain. After registering, they waved their hands and shooed away like ducks. Wait over there to be led to the banquet. The people of the Wu people were all so angry that their intestines swelled. In order to not lose face in front of their old rivals, which one of the things they brought out this time wasn't good? Some of the things they brought were even peerless heaven-grade treasures of heaven and earth. In the end, they were still looked down upon. And they couldn't do anything about it. This trip was so fucking frustrating that when they arrived at their seats, they immediately discovered that the people sitting at the same table as them were the ones who had the greatest grudge against them. Wouldn't that make things even more lively, that they cursed each other's 18 generations of ancestors as they drank. All kinds of vulgarities and slang came out one after another. It was even more lively than the haggling of aunties in the morning market. In the main hall, Zhuo Chonglu, the higher-ups of the astral souls, the Dao League's 7 swords, the 12 shamans and Chan Sheng, the top powerhouses of the 3 continents were all gathered in one place. There were 3 chairs at the head of the table. Zhuo Chonglu sat in the middle and gestured for Yu Xingchen to sit on his right. As for the seat on his left, while everyone was wondering who would sit there, Zhuo Chonglu smiled and waved his hand. Big guy, why aren't you sitting down yet? What are you waiting for? The flood which coughed and strode over. She sat upright with a solemn expression on her face. Dao League. Umno Alliance. Astral Souls. What kind of seating arrangement was this? If it was based on strength, the flood which would undoubtedly be seated, but Dao League's Daoist Thunder should also have a chair. If it was based on status, Daoist Thunder should replace Emperor Zhaixing. After all, their strengths were on par, and Daoist Thunder's status was higher. What was the reason that the flood witch could sit at the head of the table, while Taoist thunder didn't? While everyone was puzzled, they heard Inferno Shaman. Ha ha ha. Dan Kong. Hee hee. Ice Hell Shaman. Haha, are you all stupid? You didn't expect our boss to sit at the head of the table, did you? Let me tell you, your eyeballs are going to pop out later. Do some eye exercises in advance, and remember to protect your eyeballs. Don't let them pop out. The other Grand Magi looked even weirder. Poisonous Shaman snorted. What's so weird about that? It's just that. He mumbled but didn't say anything. After all, it was just a guess without any evidence. He just guessed that Zhuoxiao's nightmare hammer had something to do with their boss. Then, when the other shamans looked at him again with suspicion, they found something even weirder. They came together, but they didn't notice that Flood's boss was dressed neatly today. He even shaved his beard. His hair, which was always messy, was combed neatly. It made him look even more radiant. Furthermore, not only was his body clean, but he was also wearing a pair of shiny leather shoes. His expression seemed to be much gentler than before. The other shamans were all shocked. This was their boss. The deep ice witch shook her head and praised him from the bottom of her heart. Boss looks so handsome today. I haven't seen him dressed like a human for a long time. Tut tut, he is well dressed, which makes people's eyes light up. I immediately think of the words a beast in human clothes. Chapter 1277. The Flood Witch smiled faintly in her seat. She looked at the deep ice witch with her sharp eyes. An invisible momentum directly came out of her body and grabbed the deep ice witch's throat. It tightened. The deep ice witch, who was trembling, suddenly let out a muffled groan. Then his face turned purple and swollen. He couldn't say a word and couldn't move his body. He could only look at the great Flood Witch with a pitiful and imploring look in his eyes. Flood Great Witch's face was calm as he exchanged greetings with Zhuo Zhanglu. Crack! 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 The deep ice witch's neck was broken 3 times. Then, when his eyes were rolling, he finally let go. A breath brushed past, and his neck returned to its original state. A voice as soft as a mosquito came to the deep ice witch's ears. Go on. The deep ice witch finally took a breath and said loudly, Boss is wise and powerful. He unified Jianghu, and is my lifelong idol. He is so handsome today. Ha ha ha. My boss has always been so handsome. As he said, he looked at the Flood Witch with flattering eyes. The Flood Witch's face didn't change. The deep ice witch smiled embarrassedly and turned to the raging fire witch. You really like to be flattered. The great witch of fire quickly covered his mouth, and his face turned green. Shut up. Stop talking. On the other side, Thunder Taoist twitched the corner of his mouth and said confusedly, You are. He was completely confused. The Flood Witch was regarded as a guest by Zhuo Changchang, which was understandable. But why did the Flood Witch sit in the master's seat? According to the ranking, her position was even more important than Xingqian's. What did this mean? But Zhuo Changlu didn't explain, and arranged the order of the guests. Next it was Chan Sheng's turn. This is His Excellency Chan Sheng. Senior, you have come from afar, and I am deeply grateful for your hospitality. Please sit down. Then it was the Thunder Dao, and the other 6 swords of the Dao League. After that, he didn't arrange a guest seat for the Umno Alliance's great magi. Instead, he sat down together with Yudong Tian, Qin Fiend Saber Demon, and the others. All the great shamans. Aren't we guests? Why are you treating us so casually? Today's matter is really confusing. Brother Hong, old you will be in charge of the ceremony later. I believe you won't mind, right? Zhuo Changlu said leisurely with an amiable face. The Flood Witch nodded. Very good. There will be a toast session later. Do you need to prepare? It's already been prepared. Well, that little guy still doesn't know. Zhuo Changlu laughed. The Flood Witch smiled and said, Let's see how that little thing's cultivation is going. Everyone, with the exception of a very small number of people, was confused at this moment. Especially after hearing this conversation, they felt even more confused. What are you talking about? Why can't I understand at all? That's not right. I understand every sentence and every word clearly, but I just don't understand. Why do these words that I can understand and hear so clearly make me so confused? Lei Bao pulled the Ice Nether Witch. Brother, tell us about it? The Ice Nether Witch smiled. Actually, this is very simple, very simple. The other great shamans pricked up their ears at the same time. How simple? How simple? The Ice Nether Witch smiled proudly. Do you want to know? Do you really want to know? Everyone had an impulse to beat someone up at the same time. The Ice Nether Witch said happily. Wait until the wedding. You'll know everything. Be patient, it'll be soon. Oh. Dot. All the great shamans. Dot. Don't stop me today. I'm going to beat him to death. I'm going to die with him. The golden-scaled great shaman struggled hard and rushed toward the Ice Nether Witch, but he was held by the raging fire great shaman. Calm down, be quiet, save face, save face. The great shaman Dan Kong was persuading the others. The Flood Witch wanted to stop him, but he was too embarrassed to do so. After all, he had hidden this from his brothers for a long time. But he had to explain something, so he coughed and said, In fact, it's not a strange thing. Don't worry, I didn't mean to hide it from you. In fact, it's just a coincidence. Because of fate. Cough cough. We'll talk about the details tomorrow. In the end, he was too embarrassed to say it. Zhuo Changlu laughed. It's best to talk about it tomorrow, haha. All the great shamans' faces were swollen. What's going on? Tell us that. Why do I feel that you and Zhuo Changchang are a family, and we old brothers have collectively become outsiders? The raging fire great shaman coughed, stood up and said, Well, today is such a joyous event. As elders, haha, we came from afar, and we're also very happy. I've prepared a gift. I hope Boss Brother Zhuo will accept it. As he spoke, he wiped the ring on his hand. With a whoosh, the temperature around him rose sharply by at least thousands of degrees. The Flood Witch had covered the sudden heat with her mind. Only then did everyone see what the raging fire great shaman took out. 10 souls of fiery star. 10 roots of primordial fire true spirit. Fire and water don't mix, 1,000 jars. 3 souls of fire. The raging fire great shaman smiled reservedly. It's just a small gift, please accept it. The Flood Witch nodded and said with relief, Not bad, not bad. On the other side, Zhuo Zhanglu didn't hesitate at all. He immediately put it away and smiled amiably. Brother Hua, since you're already here, why are you spending so much money? In a while, I'll definitely ask little Duo and his wife to toast Uncle Lai Hua a few more cups of wine. The raging fire great shaman smiled and his eyes narrowed. This is what I should do, what I should do. On the other side, the eyes of the golden-scaled Wind Emperor, Lei Bao, Boundless West Sea and other great shamans popped out collectively. They really almost popped out of their eyes. Especially the West Sea great shaman, who only had a big fish in the ring prepared as a gift. He was even more confused on the spot. Fuck. This gift from the raging fire great shaman directly caught the other 8 great shamans off guard. This was too expensive, too crazy. Raging fire, this bastard, directly gave out all his treasures. The Wind Emperor great shaman breathed quickly. What's going on? Something's wrong, something's wrong. Who doesn't know something's wrong? What the hell is this, Uncle Raging Fire? The boundless great shaman scratched his head. When did this bastard Raging Fire have such a good relationship with Zhuo Changzang? He actually let his son call him Uncle Raging Fire. Fuck. This. It's so scary. The Flood Witch, who was sitting high on the seat of honor, felt that her face was shining at this moment. She smiled and praised. Raging Fire is really thoughtful. Thank you. Now the other great shamans were even more confused. Raging Fire gave Zhuo Changzhang's son a wedding gift. Boss, what are you thanking him for? What are you happy about? Thank you? What kind of favor do you owe? Has this fucking world been twisted? Or are we all dreaming? Well, Zhuo Changzhang's son is getting married, and we, the 12 great shamans, come together. This thing itself is already very mysterious. Then, the Ice Deep Shaman stepped forward and gave the gift. 10 heavenly ice jade pearls, 10 ice soul bodies, 10 ancient profound ice souls, 10,000 cubic meters of ancient profound ice, 10 ice nightmare lotuses, 5 kilograms of ice lotus roots, 1 heavenly ice spirit pearl necklace. The boundless great shaman, the West Sea great shaman, and the others all dropped their jaws to the ground. It's over, we're really in a dream. Otherwise, the ice-deep shaman wouldn't be so excessive. How is this a gift? He is simply emptying his own fortune to support the enemy. This is a gift for Zhuchangzhang's son. Isn't that supporting the enemy? What the fuck? Today has really turned my worldview upside down. Especially the last sentence. Boss, please take a look. Brother Zhua, please accept it. The Flood Witch nodded and praised. Today the ice-deep shaman is good. Finally, he has done something. Zhuchanglu suddenly put away a lot of treasures, ha ha ha. Later, I must ask Xiao Duo to toast his uncle ice-deep shaman. Etiquette can't be ignored. Etiquette can't be ignored. The ice-deep witch's face suddenly relaxed, and he laughed out loud. It's just a small gift, not worth mentioning. I heard that Brother Shihai caught a fish as a gift. That fish was caught by his own hands. Not to mention the weight of the gift, just this kind of thought. Hearing this, the West Sea Great Shaman wanted to block this guy's mouth with feces. If I take out that damn fish, I'll lose all my face today. That fish is not as good as 1/1,000,000th of any of these things you took out, that there is really nothing else except the thought. But the point is that I didn't mean it. I just wanted to make up the number. This guy is really bad. According to today's development, the Flood Boss will definitely be unhappy. Sure enough, the Flood Witch raised her head and looked over with Zhuchanglu and others. The Flood Witch's eyes were very dangerous. The West Sea Great Shaman's legs began to soften. What's going on? Zhuchanglu said. Ha ha ha, it's understandable that you guys don't know the whole story. Sending a goose feather from 1,000 miles away, it's the thought that counts. Brother Hong, you don't need to care about the details. The big fish caught by Brother West Sea must be excellent. I'll stew it for Brother Hong later. Brother Hong, you can feel the sincerity of your brother. The Flood Witch's face suddenly darkened, and she looked at the West Sea Great Shaman with murderous eyes. If you really take out a fish for me, believe it or not, I will take out the 1,000 Souls Nightmare Hammer on the spot and put justice before family. The West Sea Great Shaman's face turned pale. Boss, the Flood Witch said with a black face. Xiaoduo is my godson. He was my godson who once took care of me. I really can't hide it. I can't wait for the wedding, otherwise these guys will really make a fool of me. I've brought my brothers here to attend my godson's wedding, and I'm really counting on you to give me face. If these guys take out a fish as a congratulatory gift in front of the public, the Flood Witch felt that she would definitely be written into the history books. Everyone was collectively dumbfounded. Godson, fuck your uncle. Chapter 1278. Great Witch Flood's sudden words were simply earth-shattering, earth-shattering, earth-shattering. The 7 swords of the Tao League, the remaining 12 great shamans, and many of the higher-ups of the astral souls were dumbfounded. What the fuck? Did I hear wrongly? The son of the Sky Patrol Minister was the Flood Witch's godson? The West Sea Great Shaman, and the others felt as if thunder had exploded in their heads. All of them felt dizzy and their bodies swayed. Their faces were ashen, and their eyes were wide open. All of them were stunned and stood rooted to the ground. How could they be cheated like this? They thought that they were just here to watch the fun and start the meeting to discuss the matter. In the end, who would have thought that this was not only Zhuchangzhang's family business, but also their own family business? Flood was the godson of their boss, so they were naturally his uncles. What else could they say? If they were attending their own nephew's wedding, and all of them acted like stingy people, that he was going to be humiliated for the rest of his life. Not to mention that Lai Huoxianming and the others were so generous. If Zhou Xiaoduo called Lai Huoxianming uncle during the wedding and treated them with no regard, wouldn't they be laughed at by Lai Huoxianming and the others for the rest of their lives? No, this was not right. How could this be? The situation was clear now. Zhou Xiaoduo was their boss's godson. This was the truth. The 8 grand shamans were all dumbfounded, and they were all flabbergasted. At this moment Zhuchanglu said, Brother Hong, please don't mind them. There are no outsiders here. You must calm down. On the day of the wedding, you still have to sit and drink your wife's tea. It's not good for your body to be angry because of some useless things. Great Flood Shaman snorted and said, "This bunch of people who don't give me any face, especially dragging me down on the important matters of my life. My godson is getting married, and they only want to give him a fish. If the gift is light but the thought is heavy, there must be some thought. But they are clearly perfunctory." The West Sea Great Shaman, who bore the brunt, felt that he had no place to put his hands and feet. He lowered his head and said, "Boss, this is not known." He looked at the Ice Great Shaman, Lai Huaxian Ming, and Dan Kong Great Shaman with murderous eyes. These three sons must have known about it long ago, since they didn't have any eyes. It's fine if you know it, but to hide it so tightly, it's obvious that you are harboring evil intentions. This time I'm really dead. The Ice Deep Witch helplessly spread out her hands. "What's with your eyes?" "Boss has already told me," Huaxian Ming and the Great Shaman. "Speaking, where are your gifts?" "Everyone's. What are you guys dawdling do? Take it out." "Brother Shihai, where is the fish that you caught yourself?" "Your sister." The West Sea Great Shaman glared at him and wished he could swallow the Ice Great Shaman. But at the next moment, the West Sea Great Shaman's face suddenly changed. Suddenly he was full of cold sweat and came out from his forehead. The West Sea Great Shaman covered his stomach with one hand and said in pain, "Boss. Ouch. I don't know why. I suddenly have a stomachache. I have to go out." After saying that, he disappeared in a flash without waiting for a reply. At the next moment, everyone heard the sound of tearing space. Obviously, the West Sea Great Shaman left in a hurry. As for why he left in such a hurry, everyone knew that he must have gone to find gifts. With this precedent, the others naturally followed suit. All kinds of problems suddenly appeared on their bodies, including the poisonous Great Shaman, who had been prepared before. Leibao Great Shaman, ouch. Headache. Pain. Whoosh, he disappeared. Wind Emperor Great Shaman, ah. Neck hurts. Whoosh. Zhu Mang Great Shaman. Why do my eyes suddenly hurt? Whoosh. Jean Lin Great Shaman. Ouch. I suddenly remembered that I need to go to the toilet. Boundless Great Shaman. I also have a stomachache. Other Great Shamans. It's so uncomfortable. The 8 senior magi showed all kinds of pain methods, then disappeared one after another. The Flood Witch was so angry that her face turned purple. "Shame on me." Zhuo Changlu laughed. Don't be angry, don't be angry. How can such a small thing be worth being angry?" The others also muttered in their hearts. The 8 great shamans went out to get gifts, and this time, they went out to remind their subordinates. Those who didn't give gifts should quickly change them to more expensive ones, and those who had already given gifts should increase the price. They were destined to make a fool of themselves, and now it was time to remedy it. It was okay for the middle-level people who came with everyone to be embarrassed, but those heavenly kings couldn't be embarrassed too. Everyone could see this, but the others. Of course, the Astral Souls continent didn't have to think about this, because everyone was well prepared. But the 7 swords of the Tao League was a little embarrassed. That their gifts seemed to be a little insufficient, and it seemed that they needed to be upgraded. No matter what, it couldn't be much less than those great shamans, right? If it was just a little gap, everyone would admit it, but if they were crushed, it wouldn't look good. So everyone began to think about it, and at the same time, they were very lucky. Fortunately, they didn't take it out in a hurry. Now that there was an extra opportunity, they naturally had to cherish it. Even the Toad Saint Great Cultivator, who had been treated as an honored guest, and had already taken his seat, was thinking about what he should do. He originally wanted to give some gifts casually, but now it didn't seem to work. I've lived for 2 lifetimes, and I've never seen a wedding where a biological father and a godfather were in such a hurry to ask for gifts. After the wedding, don't leave, Zhuo Changlu said to the Flood Witch and Taoist Thunder. Now I have an idea about the return of the devil race. I'm thinking about whether it's possible to launch a sneak attack before the devil race returns, and before the continents get close and merge. If the attack succeeds, it'll be of great help to the future battles, and greatly reduce the pressure later. The Flood Witch, Taoist Thunder, and the others' eyes suddenly lit up when they heard this, and they were even a little excited. When the continents returned, there would definitely be some experts from the devil race's continent who would do their best to protect the continents they occupied. It was impossible for them to rush up recklessly. If they forcefully collided, the two continents would perish together. But there was no support here. What support would there be if they were ambushed after receiving the news? So everything could only be done by the devil race themselves. At that time, the many experts of the devil race who supported the continents until they merged, or at least until the end of this matter, were no different from being crippled. They were exhausted, and had less than 1/10 of their strength left. This was a foreseeable fact. At this time, if they could launch a sneak attack and wipe out all the experts who had overdrawn their strength, even if they couldn't wipe out half of the devil race, they could wipe out almost 1/3 of the devil race's strength. That would be a great achievement. It would also have an immeasurable effect on the final result, which was enough to tilt the balance of victory and defeat. The Flood Witch suddenly sat up straight, her eyes as sharp as a hawk's. Can you do it? Everything depends on human effort. Why can't we? Zhuochanglu said in a low voice. You know, although the return of the devil race's continent is inevitable, the two continents will only meet for a moment. The key is that at that moment, it will be accompanied by an earthquake, which will be a great disaster for the devil race's continent. It will also be a disaster for us and the three continents. Taoist Thunder's expression suddenly became fervent. Thinking of the legend of demon ancestor Rahu, everyone said that they would try their best to respond, but in their hearts, they were all afraid. Yes, they were afraid. Whether it was fear, dread, or shock, there were all kinds of feelings. If they were to really fight, no one would be a match for the demon ancestor in a one-on-one battle. This was something that everyone present was well aware of in their hearts. Even if they joined hands, they might not be able to fight against the demon ancestor. That was the fiercest man whose fierceness shocked the world. With the #1 killing treasure in the world in his hand, he was invincible. Ambush was the best way to fight the enemy that they could think of, especially at the delicate moment when the continents were merging. Even the demon ancestor wouldn't be able to fight with all his strength, right? I can only say that this is an opportunity that can't be missed, and it won't come again. No matter how big or small the chances, we have to try our best. After all, our three continents and the devil race's continent are on opposite sides. Even if there is only a slight possibility, we have to try our best, Zhuochanglu said vaguely. But because of this vagueness, everyone paid more attention to it. Because no one could be sure which direction the devil race would return from, Zhuochanglu could have some clues and set up a strategy to deal with it. This was an extremely great thing, and it didn't matter even if it was wrong. And you? The Flood Witch turned her head and looked at Lei Changtian, saying, You need to change your nickname. Lei Changtian straightened his neck and said, Why should I? Is he the only one who can be called the demon ancestor? Can I? His question was heard by everyone. To Lei Changtian's surprise, everyone nodded gently. They acknowledged the content of this rhetorical question. Yes, except for him. No one else can be called the demon ancestor. Before the demon ancestor returns, it doesn't matter what you are called. But, after the demon ancestor returns, your name will violate his taboo. You will be the first target he will target when he returns to the astral souls. The Flood Witch said slowly. When that time comes, no matter whether the others can make it in time or not, you will be the first to die. There is absolutely no luck to speak of. Lei Changtian was unconvinced and wanted to say something, but Zhuochanglu waved his hand and said in an unquestionable and irrefutable tone, You can't be called the demon ancestor anymore. Change your name to Mo Air. Chapter 1279. Lei Changtian was stunned. I changed my name just like that. Demon too? What kind of bullshit name is that? Lei Changtian exploded. I'd rather die than obey. Then what do you want to be called? Anyway, demon ancestors' demon sect won't do, Zhuochanglu said. Then I don't care. Give me another name. Demon Sword is done. Taoist Thunder smoothed things over and casually came up with a name. The skinny sword demon was unhappy. Senior Thunder, what do you want me to do with this name you gave me? Your sword demon, he's demon sword. One is a slayer, and the other is a slayer. The difference is like heaven and earth. What's wrong with that? Zhuo Changlu was the one who replied. Stop blabbering, it's settled. Lei Zhongtian's face was full of displeasure. The blade demon also had a look of displeasure on his face. But neither of them dared to speak, because Zhuo Changlu had spoken. Taoist Thunder snorted, feeling a little displeased. Why did he ask the demon ancestor to change Lei Chongtian's name? Actually, there was a reason for this. The demon ancestor had returned, and he definitely needed to establish his power, especially after the 3 continents joined forces to attack the demon continent. Looking at the higher-ups of the 3 continents, he could possibly look for targets to establish his power. If Lei Chongtian still had the demon ancestor nickname, he would be the first natural target. The demon ancestor would never allow anyone to have the same name as him. He would definitely kill him at all costs. Just as the Flood Witch said, there was no luck. But after Lei Chongtian changed his name, the demon ancestor didn't have such an obvious natural target. He would definitely choose one of them. And it was uncertain who this person would be. It could be him, or it could be someone else. In other words, Lei Zhongtian's 10,000% chance of attracting damage had been reduced to 1%. That he was on the same level as the others. He was even safer than the others. I even changed my name for your return. This is already weak. What else do you want? So Lei Chongtian might become the safest person when the demon ancestor established his power. But relatively speaking, while he was safe, others weren't. Therefore, Taoist Thunder felt a little unhappy. He kept feeling that Lei Chongtian was safe, and this target would fall on him and the other Tao League members. There was no basis for this feeling, but it was as if a steel knife was about to be placed on his neck. Why was that? Seeing that Lei Chongtian was still unhappy, Zhuo Changlu comforted him. Don't think that we're afraid of him. This is respect for our seniors, even if there are enemies. Understand? Lei Chongtian sighed. Naturally, it was easy to understand. But, what's the point of saying that you're not afraid of him? No matter what, no matter how they tried to flatter themselves, they were truly afraid of the other party. How aggrieved. July 7th. Zhuo Xiaonian and Zhuo Xiaoduo's wedding had officially begun. There was a sea of people, colorful flags fluttering in the wind, and fresh flowers filling the air. This wedding of the century really shocked the whole world, and it became a true classic of the century. The son of the minister was getting married, and the higher-ups of the 3 continents were all present. No one was absent, and no one was left out. When the bride and groom entered, the whole world was in an uproar. So handsome, so beautiful. The bridesmaids of the bride were Gao Qiaoer, Zhen Piapiao, Yu Yenner and Du Yenner. All of them were graceful and beautiful. As for Xiang Bing and Zhang Xuejuan, they didn't make the cut because they were too tall. The bride's side was fine, but it was another visual feast. After all, although the 4 women weren't as beautiful as Zhuo Xiaonian, they were still first-class beauties. But the groom's side only gave people the feeling that they were even more outstanding. The groom also had 4 groomsmen, including Li Chenglong, Pai Yibao, Yu Moyan and Li Changming. While in comparison to the smaller groups, these few were the ugliest in terms of appearance. The only one who could be considered handsome, Long Yusheng, didn't make the cut because of his looks. Compared to these groomsmen who weren't as tall as Zhuo Xiaoduo and weren't as handsome as Zhuo Xiaoduo, Zhuo Xiaoduo's image was simply the most handsome man in the world. His handsomeness broke through the sky. He stood out like a crane in a flock of chickens, outstanding. A further example would be 4 pieces of dirty sand set off a shining diamond. And that diamond was surrounded by light bulbs. How could it not be magnificent and dazzling? The groom is so handsome. Mom, I feel like I'm in love. But he's already become someone else's groom. Why? Phoenix City, Hu Ruoyan, Qin Fangyang, and the rest sat in front of the big screen, watching the live broadcast. In front of them was the food and wine that Zhuo Changlu had specially sent over. His face was full of satisfaction. In order to hide Qin Fangyang's identity from being exposed, the people from Phoenix City's number 2 high school, who were supposed to be there personally, didn't attend the wedding. Zhuo Xiaoduo couldn't do anything about it. It was his idea to let Qin Fangyang go back to be the principal. So Phoenix City's number 2 high school could only temporarily fade away in people's hearts, That if this appeared in the live broadcast, how could Qin Fengyang hide it? Hu Ruoyan's stomach was already bulging. The fetus was already 6 months old. At this moment, her face was full of motherly gentleness. Looking at Zhuo Xiaoduo's wedding, her face was glowing. Hee. Li Qinglong, Yu Moyan, and Li Changming's faces are much darker. They're not as fair as our Xiao duos. These kids don't pay attention to the occasion. Why didn't they dress up properly? Hu Ruoyan said. That's good too. Darker skin makes Xiao duo look even better. Qin Fengyang rolled his eyes and chuckled. You only have eyes for Zhuo Xiaoduo. Why don't you take a closer look? Look at how the 4 of them are forcing themselves to smile. You can't guess that their faces aren't that dark. They're obviously being coerced by that little bitch Zhuo Xiaoduo. Li Changjiang nodded his head repeatedly. Teacher Qin's eyes are as sharp as torches. But I don't dare to say this. Especially in front of my wife. Sure enough, Hu Ruoyan said angrily. Xiao duo has been honest since he was young. How could he do such a thing? Don't think that just because you usurped our Jiao Laoli's position as principal, you can talk nonsense. Do you believe that I can make Xiao duo dismiss you with a phone call? Let's see if you're more important in his heart. Or if I'm more important. Li Changjiang and Qin Fengyang lowered their heads. They stopped talking. Fine, you're in the right because you're pregnant. Even if you're not in the right, you can say whatever you want. We can't win against you. But how could you go against your conscience and say Zhuo Xiaoduo has been honest since he was young, without batting an eyelid? What they didn't know was that Hu Ruoyan didn't go against her conscience at all. She had always thought so in her heart. Obedient, hardworking, pitiful, cute, honest, righteous, sunny, tenacious, that this was the Zhuo Xiaoduo in Hu Ruoyan's heart. On the other hand, among the women in the world, Zhuo Xiaoduo was the closest. Naturally, his mother Wu Yuding was the first, followed by his wife, Zhuo Xiaonian, and then Hu Ruoyan. Even the old principal, He Yuanyue, and Grandma sure had to take a step back. How could she be ordinary? Li Qinglong and the others are diligent in cultivation. They must have gotten tanned. If it weren't for the hardships, they wouldn't have the cultivation and strength they have today. Therefore they are naturally tanned. They are indeed not as good-looking as Xiao duo, but they definitely weren't forced by Xiao duo. Hu Ruoyan said firmly, as if what she said was the truth. At the wedding venue, Li Qinglong and the other groomsmen's hearts were filled with sorrow. Today is your wedding. We naturally know that you want to be in the limelight. We all agree. We didn't intend to steal your limelight, but you smeared a layer of black on our faces. What's going on? Also, it's fine that we're not as tall as you. But what's with you telling us to lower our bodies by 2 centimeters? Although I'm not the most handsome, I'm usually called a handsome guy when I go out. Now you've adjusted the ratio of our facial features slightly and made us ugly. What do you say about that? It was just a slight adjustment so that everyone would be able to recognize that it was us. However, it just had to be a little bit uglier, causing us to lose a lot of face value. We know that this is a live broadcast. You Zhuo want to save face, but do you think we don't? However, these protests were all rejected. There was absolutely no room for argument. Today is my wedding. It's a once-in-a-lifetime big day. Brothers, please bear with it for me and be my best man. Let me be in the limelight. It's not worth it. When you guys get married, I'll be your best man too. I'll give you enough face. These were Zhuo Xiaoduo's original words. It was because of that last promise that everyone had excitedly agreed to it. Because of this, Long Yuxing and Xiang Chong, who weren't chosen as best men, were unhappy. In the end, who would have thought that this bastard would do such a thing? In order to make himself look like a beautiful jade pearl, he actually did such a thing. Not only did he darken his skin and make his height shorter, even the clothes of the 4 people were smeared with a faint layer of dark powder. Zhuo Xiaoduo fully activated his cultivation, causing the holy light to explode. Not only that, he even sprinkled soft powder and brightening agent. It was as if a peerless gem had been pulled out from a pile of dark and swarthy briquettes. There's no one else who can do such a thing. The 4 best men whispered to each other as they walked forward. Shameless to the extreme. How can someone be so despicable? Using your brothers like this? You're crazy. Well, when I get married in the future, I'll ask you guys to be my best men too. I'll let you guys set me off, Li Qinglong said. Get lost. I've done this kind of thing too many times in my life. It's enough. I'll take whoever I want in the future. Li Changming said. Hee, are you not going to get married? Aren't you going to find a best man when you get married? Let me tell you, you better know your place. If you don't want to, we can find someone else. But when you get married, I guarantee that you won't be able to find a single person. Do you believe me or not? I was wrong. Li Changming cowered. This was an extremely terrifying threat. So be it, it's just one time. Once is ugly 7 or 8 times. I'll get used to it. It's not that I won't be able to find a best man. However, if I were to find 4 Dao integration stage, or even stronger groomsmen, I'll really be unable to find another one. Well, everyone had clearly forgotten that Zhuo Xiaoduo had agreed to be their best man. With this bastard's personality, not only would he not make himself look ugly, but he would also deliberately make himself look more handsome. He would definitely outshine the other groomsmen, and even the groomsmen. All of this was foreseeable. Thus, Li Qinglong and the others had a tragic future. They still had a long way to go. Chapter 1280. After the bride and groom bowed to heaven and earth, they bowed to their parents. However, after the newlyweds bowed to their parents, they had to bow to an additional elder, the flood which sat upright, and the bride and groom bowed to their godfather. Not only was the whole world stunned by this scene, but even the bride and groom who were involved in it were also stunned. As they bowed, Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding explained in their ears. Do you still remember that blind man from Phoenix City? That's the flood guy. This guy is indeed your godfather. He's the real deal. Otherwise, where do you think your hammering skills came from? So powerful? That's your godfather's 1,000 souls nightmare hammer. It's unique in this world and unparalleled in the world. At this point, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian came to a realization. No wonder his hammering skills were so powerful. No wonder the ending when he went to the Umno Alliance last time was so strange. No wonder the flood, which was also very generous. This time, he gave out a total of 6 gifts and each one was different. They were all unprecedentedly generous. They were filled with fantastical items and peerless items. As for the top grade, and top grade items, they were all inferior. How could they be taken out? A gift for his godson. A gift for his goddaughter. A gift for his godson. A gift for his daughter-in-law. A gift for his daughter. A gift for his son-in-law. When the 6 cent gifts were given out, the entire place fell silent. The 7 swords of the Dao League were about to curse collectively. I've never seen such a shameless person. You fucking gave 6 gifts at once. What do you want us to do? And the quality of those gifts is so high. Where do you want us to find them? Even if we can find them, we can't bear to give them away. Among the 12 great shamans, they were all idiots. Especially the great Inferno shaman and the great Ice Abyss shaman, who had already given gifts. The 2 of them were dumbfounded. There was actually such a thing. Otherwise, you would be the boss. Boss, you're really good. For a moment, they were in an extremely sorry state. They had already given away their gifts, but no one else had. And now, it was being broadcasted live all over the world. You're not giving gifts. Who would know that you were done? His brother-in-law and brother-in-law stared at each other in disarray. In the end, the Ice Deep Witch was thick-skinned. He quietly approached Zhuo Changlu and transmitted his voice to him, constantly saying good words. Give me that gift, I'll give it to you again. Where's your shame? Are you shameless? Zhuo Changlu rejected him directly. Do I have to go back and give the gift again? You're one of the 12 great shamans? The Icy Deep Witch grimaced. You've received so many gifts that your hands are sore. Of course, you can make sarcastic remarks. But I've given so many gifts that I've run out of money. What's wrong with coming back and giving them again? Who told you to do that? I didn't ask you to send me anything. You don't have to. I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Zhuo Changlu was extremely unyielding. The ice hell which almost spat out a mouthful of blood. In the end, the gift was definitely not taken back. And it was impossible for them to take it back. According to Zhuo Changlu's words, there was no such thing in the world. What could the Ice Deep Witch and the Raging Fire Witch do? They could only take out a lot of gifts again, as if their hearts were bleeding. His brother-in-law and brother-in-law looked at each other. They both felt that they had acted like fools this time. They didn't succeed in tricking others. But in the end, they fell into a trap and couldn't get out. The treasures that they had taken out at the beginning were all carefully prepared treasures. The remaining treasures would definitely not be of low quality. In this way, just the gift alone had caused the two of them to, not to mention hurting their bones, but also greatly damaging their vitality. However, it wasn't good. At least, it wasn't good in the eyes of the other few senior magi. Because of them, if the other senior magi's gifts weren't as good as theirs, they would be greatly degraded. Therefore, the great shamans took turns to give gifts. Their boldness and explosiveness directly shocked the whole world. All kinds of rare treasures, all kinds of precious spiritual items, competed with each other, and emerged endlessly. Then it was the turn of the Dao League's 7 Swords gift, which was also extremely precious. On the contrary, the gifts given by the higher-ups of the astral souls were slightly inferior. At most, it was the icing on the cake, and it was rare to say that it was amazing. The great shamans and the 7 Swords were vaguely competing with each other. Well, although the great shamans really didn't want to compete with the 7 Swords, it was already like this. It was no longer up to them whether to compete or not. They had lost all their money, and they couldn't lose their face, right? Therefore, after this wedding, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian, the newly married couple, immediately became the richest couple in the 3 continents. And it was the kind that was indisputable. After the couple bowed to each other, they were sent to the bridal chamber, and the ceremony was completed. After that, they changed out of the wedding dress, came out to toast and thank each other, and so on. Here, they didn't follow the old traditions. Some things were necessary to take the opportunity to do. While toasting and thanking each other, Zhuo Xiaoduo kept spreading the Tianji orders. In fact, Zhuo Xiaoduo had been spreading the Tianji orders. By the time he came out to toast, he had already spread more than 100 million Tianji orders. However, with more than 100 million Tianji orders, it was far from the point where everyone at the meeting had won. How many guests did you think came to this wedding today? Today, in addition to Zhuo Xiaonian and Zhuo Xiaoduo's big day, it was also the highlight of Mu Yinyan's life. As the bride's master, she stood behind the flood which to accept the kowtow and toast of the newlyweds. This honor, even in the eyes of the 11 great shamans, except for the flood which were full of envy. Mu Yinyan also went all out. In order to give a gift, she even made an exception and agreed to Heavenly King Yu's request for a meal. In the middle, she tactfully mentioned that she didn't know what gift to give. After all, Mu Yinyan knew that the gift she could give was not at all on this occasion. If she couldn't give a suitable gift, she would lose face, and this would make Zhuo Xiaonian's wedding a blemish or even a stain. This was a mistake that must be avoided and must not be made. Hearing this, Heavenly King Yu's face darkened at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was not for the gift. Even if Yu Dongtian helped to prepare the gift, it would cost a lot. This was just a small matter. Moreover, it was necessary to spend money for the woman he liked. It should be an honor. Instead, it was because Yu Dongtian felt that he was 1 generation younger than the girl he was trying to chase. The girl he wanted to pursue to be his wife. Should he call her aunt? This realization almost made Yu Dongtian collapse. But of course, Yu Dongtian still chose the best gift to give to Mu Yinyan. After the two separated, Yu Dongtian thought silently for a long time and murmured to himself, "It's just master and disciple. It's okay, just master and disciple." Then, Yu Dongtian went to the cemetery of heroes in a daze. Sitting in front of the grave of his beloved wife, Nian Fenghua, and looking at her smiling eyes, Yu Dongtian asked again and again in his heart, "Is it you? Is it you? Is it? Is it really you? Is it you?" Zhuo Xiaoduo toasted one after another. Taking Zhuo Xiaonian with him, they drank sweetly and generously. Then, they went to the cemetery of heroes to toast the heroes. "Grandma Sure Principal Chung," Zhuo Xiaoduo said in his heart, "We are married. This is the wedding wine that you can't forget. Sister Nian and I are here to toast you." Hidden Dragon Martial Arts. Yi Chongqing and the others had brought back the wine and dishes from the Sun Moon Pass. They sat in front of the graves of Grandma Sure and the others. Although the smell of wine was everywhere, it was silent for a long time. A strong sense of sadness overflowed in everyone's hearts. This is Xiao Duo's wedding wine. Once upon a time, you all wanted to drink it. After a long while, Yi Chongqing finally spoke. Then he poured the wine on the ground. Drink slowly. We're here to drink with you today. Yi Chongqing said slowly. Little Duo sent a lot. I still have 100 jars. I'll keep them. When the day comes when we meet in the other world, we'll really drink them together. Xiang Kuangren. And when Xingtian raised their glasses at the same time. Cheers. Bless them. Happy wedding. On the tombstone, Yu Jian and Shi Yunfeng were leaning against each other with smiles. Cheng Gaiying smiled faintly. As the wind blew, the fragrance of the wine overflowed. It seemed that the person opposite them had already raised his glass and drained it in one gulp. Then he praised good wine. To the newlyweds. The million soldiers who had come to the cemetery moved at the same time. They poured countless barrels of wine into every tombstone in the cemetery. The fragrance of the wine soared into the sky and filled the horizon. Thank you for creating today's living environment for us to be able to get married happily. Please don't worry. I will continue to protect what you have all been protecting, so that peace and stability will last. I may not be as selfless as you, nor can I be as pure as you, but I will use my own way to do my best to protect peace. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian prayed together. Then they stood up. Under the gaze of millions of martyrs, the two raised their glasses and drained it in one gulp. Behind them, Zhuo Chonglu, Yu Xingchen, the left and right heavenly kings, Lei Chongtian, and the others. They all raised their glasses and drained it in one gulp. Brothers, let's drink a cup of my son's wedding wine. Zhuo Chonglu said softly. The final battle will begin the day after tomorrow. Bless us. I look forward to the day when we meet again. Perhaps it will be here, or in heaven and earth. On the day of the wedding, singing and dancing were celebrated. The 3 continents were all sunny and cloudless. The rich fragrance of the wine filled the 3 continents. At night, Zhuo Chonglu had already calculated all the gifts. He walked side by side with the Flood Witch. Then, he called Zhuo Xiaoduo over and said, I've made arrangements for these things for you. Okay. I've left behind items related to the yin and yang, cold and heat attributes. Only you and Xiaonian can use them. Your current focus is still to improve your strength for the future battle. Okay. As for the other cultivation consumables, you don't have enough. Everyone in the team should use them together. The focus is also to improve your strength and cultivation in the shortest time possible. It's too much, Zhuo Xiaoduo said. With so many top-grade resources, we may not be able to use them all even if we cultivate for another 100 years. Not to mention. Listen to me. Don't say anything else. Yes. As for the other things, which are not so important, I will distribute them to the 4 armies as benefits. It's my pleasure. As for the spiritual roots and spiritual treasures, you can choose the valuable ones and plant them all in the space of your Tower of Annihilation. I underestimated your space before. It turns out that it's a good place to grow spiritual roots and spiritual seedlings. Zhuo Chonglu said, There's another thing I need to make clear to you. Before the battle is completely over, I want 4/5 of the fruits borne by these spiritual treasures. Consider it as the reward for the jade powder of astral souls that the whole continent has provided for you. Zhuo Xiaoduo nodded. Oh, of course you have the final say. Then plant them right away, Zhuo Chonglu said in a low voice. It had to be said that because of certain hints, they had received a lot of spiritual treasures with spiritual roots and spiritual treasures with spiritual roots and spiritual roots. There were all kinds of spiritual roots, and there were no less than millions of them. There were also as many as 70,000 kinds of spiritual roots. If Zhuo Xiaoduo's space had not been upgraded a little recently, they would not have been able to plant them. Even if they did, they would not have enough spiritual qi to nourish them. Even so, they planted all the spiritual roots and spiritual seedlings that they had obtained. They directly planted several mountains densely. Then, A fresh aura that was full of life gradually spread out, making the space of the Tower of Annihilation even more lively. The family of four, and the flood which were busy in the Tower of Annihilation for a long time before they finished. Do you know why I hinted that I wanted these? Zhuochanglu asked. I have a rough idea. Well, tell me about it. The war is coming. I am afraid that the people of the three continents will inevitably be plunged into misery and suffering. If these things are not taken and used, it will be fine if they are destroyed by the war. If they fall into the hands of the Demon Clan and the Demon Clan, it will cause greater losses. Sending them to Xiao Duo's space is not only for them to use, but also to increase their cultivation. It is also a hidden place to store materials in case of emergency. Brother Hong, you know me well. Zhuochanglu sighed. It's all right. You and Nian should take a rest. There will be a round of toasts in the evening. There will be a lot of mundane things in these 2 days. Your mother and I will try our best to help you. Have a good rest and cultivate. He said solemnly. I am afraid that these peaceful days will only be left in these 2 days and 1 night. Zhuo Xiaoduo pursed his lips. There are many things that I should tell you clearly now. Zhuochanglu said faintly, if one day, things can no longer be done. In that case, all of you should take these things that you've obtained from the wedding, and everyone else who's not enough. Find a secret place to hide, and continue to cultivate in the space exterminating pagoda until you've cultivated to the peak of the grand heavenly realm. Only then can you come out and avenge the 3 continents. You will be the only backup we have left. So, we will use this wedding to plunder all the high-grade materials in the world. This is the escape route of mankind. Zhuochanglu said faintly. Dad, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian were shocked for the first time. They did not expect Zhuochanglu to be so pessimistic about the future of the continent. Instantly, he understood that the real purpose of collecting all the top cultivation resources and treasures of heaven and earth from the 3 continents was actually here. The 12 great wizards and the higher-ups of the astral souls were obviously aware of this. Otherwise, why would the great wizards and the higher-ups of the astral souls give away all their belongings at the last moment and secretly mix in a lot of extra things? For example, everyone's secret cultivation manuals, cultivation methods, experiences, and insights. As for why the Dao League did not do this, it was probably because the Dao League had its own backup plan and did not rely on Zhuo Xiaoduo. The Flood Witch sighed softly. Godfather, do you have any other instructions? When Zhuo Xiaoduo called out the word Godfather, he still felt that it was unreal and absurd. The Flood Witch stood with her hands clasped behind her back. She looked around at the scenery inside the Tower of Annihilation and said softly, If we have to fight to the death, then we will fight to the death. Don't mourn for us. That's where we are destined to go. When that happens, the Wu people will leave a few seeds to continue the bloodline of the Wu people. The number will not exceed 30, and they will all be sent to you. At that time, I hope you can take care of them for my sake. With the Flood Witch's status and cultivation, Zhuo Xiaoduo was even more shocked when she said these words. He was even more shocked than when Zhuochanglu said those ominous words. He felt as if there was a thunderclap in his head, his mouth was dry, and his heart was about to split open. After all, the great witch Hong Shui was recognized as the first person in the world, and Zhuo Zhonglu was just a successor. After all, he was inferior. But in the future battle, if even the great witch Hong Shui did not have the confidence to survive, then the cultivators in this world, who dared to say that they could safely survive this catastrophe. But this is just a hypothesis. The Flood Witch smiled and said, The Wu people, the human race of astral souls, and the Dao League, the 3 continents may cooperate sincerely. Maybe we won't reach that stage, but there's always a possibility. As she said this, she took out a pile of space rings and said, I know your space needs a large amount of jade powder of astral souls to form the foundation. Here are all the jade powder of astral souls collected by the Umno Alliance during this period. After that, I'm afraid you won't have time to collect them. That, Zhuo Xiaoduo's eyes lit up. What the hell? The jade powder of astral souls of the entire Umno Alliance was collected? It was so old. It was probably more than all the powder he had put in the Tower of Annihilation since he got it. Since it's the foundation of the space, it doesn't matter. Before the day after tomorrow, ask your grandfather to take you to collect the jade powder of astral souls of the 3 continents one last time. Zhuo said lightly. Once we start fighting with the demon race, we won't have time to care about these things. Yes, I understand. That as soon as Zhuo left the Tower of Annihilation, he went to find Taoist Thunder. Brother Thunder, I have something to ask. What is it? Where did you arrange for the great cultivator Zhu to go after he arrived on your side? Zhuo asked. Brother Zhu is indeed very powerful. If it weren't for the fact that his vitality was severely damaged, I would have worshipped him. Taoist Thunder's eyes were filled with gratification. Therefore, I also did as you said, and asked for his personal opinion. I arranged for him to be in the most suitable environment and temperature for him to display his abilities. The Storm Seaside, the Plague Ocean Realm. Storm Seaside? Plague Ocean Realm. He muttered to himself in the middle of the long left road. Yes. Understood. Zhuo couldn't help but think. The Storm Sea was boundless. Why was it called the Storm Sea? Naturally, it was because this side of the sea was the Dao League's continent. At the border of the Dao League's continent was the Wind and Cloud clan, and on the other side of the 2 clans was the White Mountain. It was the place where Zhuo went last time. It was also the place where the Dao League's continent and the Astral Souls' continent bordered. Further out from here was the Umno Alliance's continent. In other words, the Storm Sea was diagonally opposite the Umno Alliance's continent. Speaking of the Storm Sea, its cross-section alone was a terrifying 350,000 kilometers. It was a natural moat. Did you arrange for him to go to the Storm Sea? Plague Ocean Realm, Zhuo said. Can you tell me more about the specific location? It's hard to say. The specific location is controlled by him, Taoist Thunder said. For a great cultivator like him, he has his own considerations. He uses his own aura to guide and choose the place that is most beneficial for him to fight or cultivate. Since Brothers would trust me so much, why would I restrict him? Yes, I understand, Zhuo said faintly. In other words, he has already chosen the location, or he is at the location that he has chosen. Yes. So as long as we find him, we will know his current location. Of course. Brother Zhuo, are you so happy because of your children's wedding that you have become silly? Taoist Thunder was a little puzzled. They were all top-notch mighty figures of the present age. Was it so difficult to understand what they were saying? You can't understand such a simple sentence? I have already explained it many times, okay? Could it be that you, the heaven-inspecting minister, have already become senile? I understand. Zhuo nodded, and a smile appeared on his face. Then, he immediately called Zhu Yan and asked for his current location. He repeatedly confirmed that Zhu Yan's location would make him feel exceptionally comfortable and would be more beneficial for improving his strength and fighting. Thus, Zhuo had an idea in his heart. Zhu Yan kept answering questions on the other side while feeling confused. What's wrong? Why are you asking me where I am again and again? Didn't you send me here? Is there a problem? Why do I feel that something is not right? On the other side, Zhuo, who had confirmed the situation, immediately called for a meeting with all the higher-ups on his side. All the higher-ups here were referring to the higher-ups of the 3 continents. The Astral Souls continent had fewer people. The 4 great generals, each of them had only a dozen top-notch generals whose cultivation was not weaker than the great generals. Then there were the left and right heavenly kings Wu Taijiang, Bai Yunduo, and so on. Other than that, there were Lei Changtian, Yu Xingchen Qin Sha, Saber Demon, Sword King, Zhuo and his wife, and a few old fellows who had been away for a long time. All in all, there were no more than 100 top-notch combatants. On the Umno Alliance's side, the 12 great shamans led their heavenly kings, great generals and great generals. There were more than 500 top-notch combatants. The Dao League also had more than 200 top-notch combatants. This was the true summit meeting, the gathering of the century. Everyone was quietly having a meeting in an independent space. The scope of the meeting this time was much wider, because there were many things that needed to be conveyed directly. Direct orders. Not even the slightest possibility of a mistake was allowed. This is a gamble. Chapter 1281. This is a gamble. Zhuo went straight to the point and said, "It's a huge gamble for the well-being of the 3 continents. It's extremely risky, but we have to take this gamble. Otherwise, we won't be able to hold on until the return of the demon race. We'll be destroyed by the demon race first. Therefore, we have to take this risk. I ask everyone not to have any objections to any of my decisions." Zhuo Chenglu's eyes flashed like lightning. Understood. Everyone agreed to it. What I'm going to deploy next is how we're going to intercept the demon race when they return. Zhuo Chenglu's words aroused everyone's great interest. 2 balls of light burst out in everyone's eyes. Intercept the demon race. Was this day finally about to arrive? Intercept the demon race? Where? Taoist Lei was very excited. The answer to this question was enough to make everyone feel very excited, but also very puzzled. There was only one chance for such a sneak attack. It could be said that it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It could be said that it was unparalleled throughout history, because such an opportunity could only come once, and the interval was very short. At most, it would be less than a minute. If they could seize this 1 minute, it would be enough to cause great damage to the demon race and reduce the upper limit of their military strength. Once they succeeded, the chances of the 3 continents would greatly increase. In other words, this opportunity was a turning point in the life and death of the 3 continents. Great Shaman Dan Kong looked at the huge projection of the 3 continents that was hung on the wall. His eyes were dignified. Left Minister, this intercept is very important. It may be a good opportunity, but it may not be a crisis. Great Shaman Dan Kong said, "According to your strategy, all of our high-end military strength must be gathered in one place and wait for the opportunity to intercept. But if the demon race doesn't return from the predetermined location and comes back from another direction, then the defensive line in other places will be extremely weak. Once the demon race's military strength enters, the 3 continents will be defeated even faster. We still have to be cautious." Zhuo Chenglu said in a deep voice, "I understand this point. That's why I said that this is a gamble, and the stakes are the fates of the 3 continents." Zhuo Chenglu's words silenced the crowd. It was so quiet that one could even hear the sound of a heartbeat. The Flood Witch said indifferently, "If we don't intercept and wait for the demon continent to merge with the 3 continents, then launch an attack, will the result make any difference? If we do it, as long as we do it right, we can reduce the losses. At the very least, tens of millions of people won't die immediately. If we don't do it, the people will be in a terrible situation. There will be no turning back. Since fate has already reached the point where I have to gamble, and I might lose regardless of whether I gamble or not, why not choose to gamble? At least there's still a chance of survival if I gamble. Why not gamble?" The Flood Witch sat upright on the chair, her eyes deep and unfathomable. Everyone suddenly understood. The current situation was obvious. Even if the 3 continents sincerely cooperated, they might not be a match for the returning demon race. Moreover, there was an even more tyrannical demon race behind them. Since they were going to lose no matter what, why not take a gamble? Even if he lost the bet, so what? In any case, the consequences couldn't get any worse. "Next is the deployment," Zhuo Chenglu said. Taoist Thunder interrupted. "You haven't said the specific location. I understand that intercepting is imperative, but the accuracy of the target's location is also the most important thing. Regarding this, we have the right to know." Taoist Thunder was the other top person in the continent besides the Flood Witch and Zhuo Chenglu. What he asked was also the key question, and it was also the question that everyone present was most concerned about. Zhuo Chenglu pondered for a moment and said, "After the fine divination of heavenly secrets, the heaven and earth rotation technique, and the all heavens aura observation, we can already determine a general location." Determine a general location? What is the specific location? Everyone was a little confused. Fine divination of heavenly secrets? The heaven and earth rotation technique? The all heavens aura observation? After hearing these 3 lofty titles, All the higher-ups were immediately dumbfounded. Everyone didn't understand, and felt that it was awesome. They didn't know what these were at all. But they were all tough characters who could take risks, and let go easily. They knew that now was not the time to be confused about whether they understood or not. The key point was, where was this place? It didn't matter what method they used to discover it. Zhuo Chenglu pointed and said seriously, "Our conclusion is, there is an 80% chance that the demon clan will return from this location to merge with the continent." A white light shot out from his finger, and accurately shone on a certain spot on the map. Then, Bai Yunduo took out a red pen, and drew a circle around this place. In the center of the red circle were 3 big words. Plague Sea. Plague Coast. The flood which frowned. This place was a little far from the Umno Alliance, but it was very close to the Dao League's continent. This was because it was at the edge of the Dao League's continent. That's right, it's the Plague Sea. Zhuo Chenglu nodded affirmatively. The faces of the 7 swords of the Dao League turned pale immediately. The faces of the Dao League experts behind them also changed, and became extremely ugly. Why is it the Plague Sea? Why is it here? Taoist Master Yun suddenly stood up and stared at the 3 words in disbelief. There was one thing he didn't say. Why did they land from the Dao League? Why didn't they land from the Umno Alliance, or the Astral Souls? If the Demon Clan landed from the Plague Sea, the first place they would attack would be the Dao League's continent. Only by smashing through the Dao League would they reach the Astral Souls continent. Then they could spread out and expand their battle lines. They would have to reach the edge of the Astral Souls continent before they could really reach the Umno Alliance's continent. If this was really the case, the Dao League continent would be the first victim of this catastrophe. Why is it the Plague Sea? You'll have to ask the Demon Clan about that. Zhuo Chenglu coughed and said, "But the location we've observed is here. We've already confirmed it over and over again. No one has any reason to lie about this." The 7 swords of the Dao League stared blankly and sat down, each of their faces pale. They naturally understood the reason behind this. The 3 continents would inevitably be attacked by the return of the demon race. This was a matter that was set in stone. The 3 continents that were attacked first and later would still be attacked. There was no doubt about this. But now that things had come to a head, their own continent was the first to be attacked. It was only natural that they would be unwilling to accept this. Zhuo Chenglu paused and said, "Of course, there are always errors in any divination. Even if we've confirmed it over and over again, there's still a possibility of error. There's less than a 10% chance of error. Then you might as well say no. If there was more than a 90% chance of success, it was basically set in stone." Taoist Master Lei breathed a sigh of relief. After all, he was the number 1 in the Dao League. His state of mind was still relatively strong. After confirming the situation, he knew that it was useless to complain. So he had to quickly think of a solution. But what should he do? There was no point in arguing about the reason now. However, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Zhu Zhan, who Zhuo Chenglu had sent, seemed to be stationed nearby. Could it be that Zhuo Chenglu already knew about this place? So Zhu Zhan specially chose this place as his base? At this thought, Taoist Master Lei couldn't help but look at Zhuo Chenglu with gratitude. Zhu Zhan was a peak cultivator in this world. In order to confirm the situation, he was sent over by Zhuo Chenglu in case of an emergency. He would be blocking the bullet hole. The first target of the Demon Clan's return would be Zhu Zhan, and no one else. That this was a huge favor. However, Taoist Master Lei immediately thought of another matter. His body suddenly trembled, and his face turned pale. His lips trembled, and he almost fainted. "We'll set off tonight and rush over there," Zhuo Chenglu said. Those below the Heavenly King realm, immediately gather the troops and move over there. Those below the Skysor realm, there's no need to join in the fun. This time the fun won't be good. Those below the Skysor realm will be led by a general. From now on, they'll be scattered in various strongholds. Make sure they're connected from head to tail and cooperate with each other. Make use of the heroic soul checkpoints we've set up in various places to prepare for a head-on clash with small groups of demons. We'll do our best to resist the enemy outside the nation's gates. Yes, the Wu people's troops will be split up and merged into the Astral Souls army. Accept unified command. Yes. In this critical moment of the continent's survival, let go of all previous grievances. Anyone who violates this will be executed without hesitation. Yes. Make the arrangements immediately. Complete the integration of the army before noon tomorrow. Before tomorrow afternoon. We have to complete the departure. Yes. In times of crisis, we have to use severe punishment. There's no other punishment, only 3 words. Anyone who violates this military order. Zhuo Chonglu's eyes were like sharp arrows as they swept across everyone's faces. He said indifferently, kill without mercy. Yes. The Dao League's army will still be arranged by the Dao League's higher-ups. At that time, when the Dao League fights against the demons in the interior, we'll prioritize reducing losses. If we really can't hold on, we'll retreat to the Astral Soul's army. Everyone will fight against the demons together. But I think that should be a matter of some time later. Zhuo Chonglu said. Taoist Thunder answered seriously, yes. Fengyan, go out and pass down the order. Yes. Wait. The Flood Witch raised her eyebrows and asked word by word. Did the Dao League build a heroic soul checkpoint on the Plague Coast? Is it the heroic soul checkpoint? This sudden question made the Dao League's 7 swords fall silent. The 7 of them looked at each other, then looked at the heavenly kings behind them. Behind them, the higher-ups of the Dao League were all pale. They didn't dare to make eye contact with them and looked away. The Dao League's 7 swords stood apart from Taoist Thunder. The other 6 people's faces were as white as paper. As for Taoist Thunder, his insides had already been destroyed long ago. Zhuo Chonglu's body shook violently, and his eyes turned into disbelief. Then, he suddenly turned to look at Taoist Thunder. His gaze was like lightning, and there was an intense pressure that was about to explode. His voice was hoarse. That territory you guys, didn't build a heroic soul checkpoint. Let's ask for a monthly vote. My diarrhea stopped, and I didn't stop updating. Then, I feel that it's better if I didn't mention this. That way, you guys would only scold me for being lazy. After that, you'll mock me to death. Let's ask for a monthly vote. Chapter 1282. Taoist Thunder was almost too ashamed to show his face. The other locations have all been built. That place is remote, and has a huge ocean as a natural barrier. Hearing this extremely powerless explanation, everyone was speechless. They were dumbstruck. Facing everyone's scornful and angry gazes, Taoist Thunder was almost too ashamed to show his face. The other locations have all been built. That place is remote, and has a huge ocean as a natural barrier. Hearing this extremely powerless explanation, everyone was speechless. They were dumbstruck. The Inferno Witch jumped up, his scalp turning numb. What does the Dao League mean by this? Why are all the other locations built? Why isn't it built at the place where the demons will come from? The Inferno Witch's red hair stood on end, and his eyes were as big as copper bells. The 7 old Taoists and the heavenly kings of the Dao League all lowered their heads in shame and didn't say a word. Zhuo Chonglu felt the ground under his feet go soft, as if he was stepping into a bottomless abyss. Staring at Taoist Thunder, the invincible heaven-inspecting minister said in a hoarse voice, "Why isn't the hero's soul pass built on that side?" At this moment, Zhuo Zhonglu even suspected that his so-called scheme was simply the manifestation of the established cause and effect. The place that Zhuyan chose to go to was merely the starting point of the greatest disaster. Even if Zhuyan didn't go to that place would become the inevitable return point of the Devil Tribe. It was never a simple truth that 100 miles dike could collapse because of an ant's nest. Zhuo Chonglu didn't wait for a reply, and immediately turned to Yudongtian. The Astral Soul's continent now. Add the hero's soul pass to the side of the Dao League continent. On top of the original foundation, it would be doubled. Hurry. Go. Yudongtian, whose face was ashen, did not say anything and immediately ran away. At this moment, the atmosphere seemed to have frozen. Then Zhuo Chonglu looked at Taoist Thunder and asked, "Why? We really don't have enough manpower. We've chosen the borders of the Umno Alliance, extending it in the direction of the Sun Moon Pass, as well as the north. We've built quite a number of heroic soul passes. The Sea of Plagues itself is like a natural moat. So, sigh. At this moment, the 7 swords of the Tao League, who had already understood the situation, were already filled with regret. Stunned for a moment, Zhuochanglu suddenly burst out in anger and cursed. Bastard. Those lines of defense you set up are to guard against the demons? They're clearly guarding against us astral souls and the Umno Alliance. You are guarding against your comrades. There's no way to guard against enemies. Zhuochanglu's face turned green. He roared angrily. What do you mean by natural moat? When the demons returned from the entire continent, their first choice was to land in the open ocean. Did they really have to find a corner to crash into? Even if they don't care about our continent, they should be worried about the demon continent itself, right? Are the heads of the 7 of you filled with shit? Zhuochanglu rained curses down on them. He was so angry that his breathing quickened. Everyone in the Tao League bowed their heads and took the scolding. The 7 swords of the Tao League were old, but this was the first time they had been pointed at and scolded so harshly. But now they could only listen. They had nothing to say, because they were really in the wrong. No wonder they were scolded. They were even thinking about it. They couldn't blame the Tianji goblin of the astral souls for calculating the location of the Plague Sea. Wasn't it the Plague Sea? It was so open, so vast, and so good a place to land. No matter how much you scold them now, even if you scold them to death or scold them, can you change reality? The Flood Witch said calmly and mockingly, I've never expected the Tao League to do anything. You might as well start talking about how to intercept. This sentence was like the loudest slap to the faces of the old Taoists. For a moment, their faces were as red as pig's blood, glistening with vermilion red. His original sage-like appearance had long since vanished without a trace. Zhuochanglu took a deep breath and suppressed his surging emotions. But his blade-like gaze was still fixed on the Tao League people. You know what responsibility the Tao League has to take for this intercept, and what position you have to take, right? Taoist Thunder said shamefully, Don't worry. Since we made such a big mistake, we will do our best to make up for it. Yu Xingchen snorted and said angrily, You want to make up for it? You definitely want to make up for it. If the demons return as scheduled, they will be directly placed in the hinterland of the 3 continents. But why do you want to make up for it in the first place? It's because the Tao League is the first to bear the brunt of it. Otherwise, people like you who have always been wise to protect yourselves will not continue to sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Now that things have come to this, if the demons break into the hinterland, not to mention that you haven't built the Brave Soul Pass, even if you did, it will be in the opposite direction. Do you think no one can imagine that? Everyone became more and more speechless. Emperor Zhaixing didn't hide his sarcasm, but his words were powerful and meaningful. This accusation was terrible, but it hit the nail on the head. The direction of a pass and the direction of the defense would be very different from the direction of the hinterland. The Tao League had abandoned the Plague Sea, resulting in the current awkward situation. As long as the demons broke in, they would be facing the hinterland of the 3 continents directly. Even if they wanted to fight, they would have to give up their sharp spears and use their sturdy shields to block. In other words, there was only defense, no offense. It was extremely passive. Even if the demons lost, they would use the Brave Soul Pass built by the Tao League to strengthen their own defense. Everyone present was a hero who had fought for a lifetime. Who wouldn't have thought of this? If not for Zhuochanglu's sudden idea of intercepting the demons who hadn't arrived yet and noticed this place. If the demons were allowed to successfully land, this battle would be equivalent to being passive before the battle even started. The 3 continents, which were already at a disadvantage, wanted to turn the situation around. It would be harder than ascending to the heavens. What a fucked up situation. Taoist Thunder's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He had ordered the construction of the heroic soul pass time and time again. He had practically chased after his subordinates to build it. However, such a huge mistake had still occurred when the construction had finally arrived. They had neglected the entire coastline. Only now did they know that this coastline was actually the demon's route. This was the Tao League's death, and the first to bear the brunt of it was the Tao League. At this moment, everyone from the 7 swords of the Tao League was so depressed that they wanted to die. When they thought about the consequences, they felt even more hopeless. Zhou Changlu, the Flood Witch, and the others were furious that the demons used the Plague Sea as a starting point to enter the 3 continents. After overturning the Tao League, which bore the brunt of it, they used this as a foundation to further threaten and harm the Umno Alliance and the Astral Souls. But to the 7 swords of the Tao League, this result was 1,000,000 times more serious than the Umno Alliance and the Astral Souls. Because if the demons wanted to attack the Astral Souls and the Umno Alliance, they would first have to step over the huge corpse of the Tao League. This was simply too much. Zhou Changlu also cursed endlessly in his heart. No matter how astute and wise he was, he never expected that the Tao League would be completely unguarded over there. What was a pig teammate? This was it. Then, Zhou Changlu spat on the ground. Why did he call them a pig teammate? It was blasphemy to compare the brains of the Tao League to pig brains. Pig brains tasted pretty good. Zhou Changlu had an impulse. If he had known earlier, he would have thrown Zhu Yan to the Umno Alliance. At least the Umno Alliance was already impregnable in all directions. Even if he had left Zhu Yan to the Astral Souls, he could have reduced the losses of the 3 continents by too much. He could have taken down a lot of the demon's strength. But now that the Tao League's doors were wide open, opening the door for thieves. What the fuck? Could it be that Zhu Yan's heavenly luck is really that strong? It automatically finds the weak points. Is this a man-made disaster or a natural disaster? Is it cause or effect? Fuck, this is really fucking bad enough. Zhou Changlu sighed again and again in his heart. He did not know if he regretted his past, or if he was glad that he had made such a decision that day. It gave the originally desperate situation a glimmer of hope. Forget it, let's talk about tactics. The golden-scaled great shaman said sullenly. I feel powerless even if I criticize and scold them now. Things are already like this. We can only do our best to remedy the situation. What else can we do? Just as Boss said, even if you scold them to death, can you change this established fact? Sigh. Almost everyone sighed. The 200 or so Tao League members were so ashamed that they almost wanted to dig a hole and hide in it collectively. Zhou Changlu was deeply disappointed. He glanced at them and said, "The golden-scaled great shaman is right. Next, I will arrange the tactics. During my speech, I don't want to hear any voices of doubt or restraint. If there are any objections, wait until I'm done." Everyone raised their heads. Masters of the 3 continents above the heavenly realm immediately assemble the troops and rush to the scene. Arrange the troops according to the situation at the scene at that time, and form a comprehensive ambush formation. Something must be said clearly. The best time for an ambush is the moment when the 2 continents merge. At that moment, when the 2 continents merge, the shock produced will cause anyone, any cultivator, or any expert in this world to lose their footing. At that moment, it will definitely be the moment when the world is turned upside down. Whether it's the eyes or the spiritual sense, it will be difficult to perform as well as usual. But after that moment, the ambush will be meaningless and it will be difficult to perform its intended function. Because only at that moment, the masters of the demon clan will be using all their strength to protect the continent where they live. It will be the moment when the demon clan's continent is at its most empty. At that moment, there will definitely be another wave of reserves coming over. The so-called ambush will only evolve into a head-on confrontation, and there will be no more substantive meaning. And at that time, the secrets of heaven will be completely mixed up. It will be difficult for anyone to predict the future. The power of the spiritual sense will also be out of control, and the heavenly Tao on both sides will also be muddle-headed. So it will be the best time. Based on this understanding, we must identify the position in advance. When the time comes, whether we see it or not, we must direct our strongest attack towards the position that we have identified in advance and directly smash it. Chapter 1283. Zhou Changlu said in a deep voice. We need to make the strongest attack in the greatest chaos. so as to impact and even destroy the demon continent. I expect there to be 4 waves of attack. The first wave is the first second of the collision. At this moment, the demon masters will definitely attack with all their strength. It seems to be the moment when the defense is the strongest, but it may also be the moment when the opponent suffers the strongest backlash from the impact of the continent. Therefore, we need to attack with all our strength at that time, and after the attack, everyone will immediately recover. Then, about 3 seconds after the collision, we will launch the second wave of attack. Then the third wave. Before the 5th second, the third wave must be launched and launched, Zhuochanglu said. In summary, without any preparation time, the 3 waves of attack will all be concentrated in one place. Otherwise, it will be difficult to cause the greatest damage. The Flood Witch frowned and said, "What about the 4th wave of attack? After the first 3 waves of attack, if the attack is appropriate, I believe that the demon's defense force will have suffered heavy casualties. However, most of the high-level demons will not die, or their souls will not dissipate even if their bodies die. At this time, we need the 4th wave of attack to form the focus of the attack. For the 4th wave of attack, we need to prepare a group of special forces. When they rush in, they will directly use the self-detonation attack. They will use the method of mutual destruction to eliminate most of the demon forces that have been attacked to the greatest extent. And the number of people in this wave of self-sacrificing fighting force must not be small," Zhuochanglu said in a heavy voice. "Use the extreme method of mutual destruction to take away all the enemies that have been crippled. Leave the 4th wave to us, the Tao League." Taoist Thunder raised his head, his eyes red, and said, "We will do it. We can't let you do all the work. Our Tao League has made such a big mistake. Then we will try our best to make up for it." Zhuochanglu, the Flood Witch, Lei Changtian, Wu Yuding, and other great wizards died at this moment. They all looked at the people of the Tao League with eyes full of suspicion. The meaning was very clear, very direct, and very pure. How could you guys miss out on such a big matter? Can you guys handle it? We weren't surprised, but we were really suspicious. Such undisguised doubtful gazes caused the members of the Tao Alliance to feel even more ashamed of themselves. Now the Tao League had really been lowered to the ground. "If we can't even do something like this, the 7 of us don't plan to live anymore," said Priest Thunder resolutely. His eyes were even blood red. "We have made such a huge mistake. We are full of sins. If we ask you to sacrifice your people at this moment, we might as well kill ourselves. If that's the case, we really don't have the face to continue living." The other Tao League experts shouted at the same time. Their chests felt like they were about to explode. This feeling of being looked down upon was really too sullen. No matter what, he had to prove himself with his achievements. "We the Tao League are not cowards. The Tao League mainland will be protected by the higher-ups of the Tao League." "That's fine too," Zhuochanglu said. "The Tao League will be the main force in the 4th wave of attack. However, Astral Souls and the UMNO Alliance will still organize a group of suicidal people to prepare. This is a foolproof plan. If you guys can't do it, there will be others to fill in. I hope our people can make it in time." This was the safest way. Priest Thunder was not allowed to interfere. Gritting his teeth, Priest Thunder said, "Minister, may I ask how many people are needed to complete this suicide mission?" Zhuochanglu sighed and said, "This can only be decided when we arrive at the scene. However, if we estimate now, no matter how small it is, it can't be less than 5,000 people." All the higher-ups looked solemn and sighed softly. How could the contact area between the 2 mainlands be small? The entire coastline, which seemed like a lot of 5,000 people, could probably only bomb a small area. However, this kind of sacrifice could not be too much. If all the experts rushed up and self-destructed, it would naturally cause more damage to the enemy. However, what about the future battles? What should they do? It was even more impossible for them to blow up the entire demon race. Therefore, this wave could only destroy the elites that the demons used to protect the mainland. Then the mainland itself would be shaken. It would be enough to destroy all the demons that could be destroyed in the mainland. Although the Tao League, Astral Souls, and the UMNO Alliance would be hurt at the same time, it would definitely be worse for the wandering demons in the starry sky. Because the demons had no roots in the mainland. Then, no matter what, the three mainlands had been united for tens of thousands of years. They had a foundation that was 3-to-1. As long as this wave was executed properly, it was foreseeable that it would be a great success. 5,000, the eyes of Priest Thunder and the other priests flashed. They looked at each other, then looked at the experts of the Tao League under them. Finally they gritted their teeth and said, 5,000 is not enough. We will organize 20,000 suicidal people here. Zhuo Changlu said mildly. Everyone can say pretty words, but the results of the battle will be confirmed in the future. We will talk about the exact number of people who will participate in this battle after you have organized. The four heavenly kings of the Tao League and Priest Fire left in a flash, returning to make arrangements. Organize the troops immediately and prepare to rush to the Plague Sea. Zhuo Changlu gave the order directly. Okay. That afternoon, all the high-level forces left Sun Moon Pass, and the scene became much emptier. Now the main focus of the battle was the Plague Sea, and they had become allies with the Umno Alliance. Naturally, the battle at Sun Moon Pass was over. As for whether it would start again in the future, it was probably impossible at the moment. Even if there was an internal strife, it would probably be a long time in the future. After all, even if the three parties worked together to successfully shake off the demons, and even exterminate them, there were still stronger demons after the demon mainland. Zhuo Changlu and the others were pressed for time. But before everyone left, they all went to the Cemetery of Heroes to light an incense stick. They stood quietly in the Cemetery of Heroes for a while. The atmosphere was extremely solemn. Countless soldiers silently looked at the tombstones of their brothers, and carefully plucked the weeds on the tombstones. Perhaps this was the last farewell in this life, and also the last time I came to see you. Salute. Turn around. Never look back. The various large armies that stayed behind were recuperating and recovering as much as possible, making their combat strength the most complete. Nan Zhengxian was left behind on the Astral Soul's side, and two heavenly kings were left behind on the Umno Alliance side. They were in charge of the integration of the armies of the two continents. Everything was carried out in an orderly, stable, and orderly manner. Apart from the lowest ranks who felt that the current orders were incomprehensible and incredulous, those who could become the leaders of the armies all knew what to do. Orders were quickly passed down and carried out. The groom, Zhuo Xiaoduo, brought the wedding wine to send them off. It was considered the completion of the toast, as the final process of this wedding of the century. Of course, he also had a secret mission, a personal mission. He wanted to check on the fortunes of those who were about to go to war, and whether there were any obstacles in their fates. Would the future still be safe? Zhuo Xiaoduo spent the afternoon as if it were a year. In front of him were countless heroic faces that did not fear death, and were smiling. But as far as his eyes could see, at least one out of every 3 people would never come back. These people were just talking and laughing with him. Just now. Zhuo Changlu followed beside him, listening to his son's continuous transmission. The father and son were clearly full of smiles and joy, but they did not know that their hearts were bleeding. In such a large-scale war, it was impossible to change the fate of everyone. If it was a commanding position, a more eye-catching position, there might be a possibility that there would be a response, because the divine consciousness connection between them would be stronger. After making preparations in advance and paying a certain price, it was possible to change a death calamity. But now, in the entire expedition team, there were thousands of such deaths, but there was no way to deal with it. After seeing less than 1/5, Zhuo Changlu collapsed and gave up. Instead, he asked Zhuo Xiaoduo to look at the upper echelons, from the position of the marshal of the 4 sides. The upper echelons did not suffer great losses. Zhuo Xiaoduo transmitted his voice. Uncle Shimin and Uncle Beigong have accumulated too much killing over the years. In this decisive battle of the century, Heaven's will is muddle-headed and suddenly erupted. It is because of their own luck that they are seriously injured. Grandfather will also be seriously injured. The others are fine, but Senior Saber Demon is in danger of dying. Zhuo Changlu's expression froze. Saber Demon? He's in danger of dying? Yes. Is it reversible? Irreversible. Zhuo Changlu sighed. Zhuo Xiaoduo transmitted his voice. It was Uncle Sword King who was in danger. Uncle Saber Demon went to rescue him, but he had no choice but to perish together with the demons. That this is a series of karma evolutions. I don't know if I can prevent this disaster from happening, if I can keep an eye on Uncle Sword Sovereign, but this bit of karma, to the people at the peak of this world, is something that can't be reversed once it erupts. Zhuo Changlu nodded and said, I understand. He pondered for a moment and said, Last time, you said that your senior brother was in danger of dying. Then in this battle, Zhuo Changlu had been thinking about Zhuo Xiaoduo's assertion that Bai Yunduo was likely to be alone. Now he asked. Not this battle, Zhuo Xiaoduo said with certainty. Senior brother's calamity should be in a year. In a year? Zhuo Changlu was shocked. Xiaoduo, do you mean the demons will return in a year at the latest? Zhuo Xiaoduo looked at Yun Zhonghu in the distance and said softly, That's more or less what I mean. Dad, judging from the current flow of fate, when the demons return, I'm afraid that not many people on our side will survive. I don't dare to say that it will be like this, but... Zhuo Changlu took a deep breath and his face darkened. In fact, the return of the demons this time is a great crisis. But the crisis may be a turning point. It may also give us a chance to defy the heavens and change our fate. This battle of the century will add a lot of experience to many people. Actual combat experience has always been the most direct way for us cultivators to improve our cultivation and strength and change the trajectory of our fate. If the astral soul's continent can devour the fate of the demon continent in this battle, and devour enough of it, it's not impossible to defy the heavens and change our fate. Or rather, if our fate is strong, our fate will naturally change. Even if it's fixed, it can be influenced and deviated by variables. Zhuo Xiaoduo said. Zhuo Changlu nodded silently. As Zhuo Xiaoduo spoke, he intentionally or unintentionally glanced at his father's face. Suddenly, he discovered that his father's face, which was completely fine just a moment ago, was now covered with a dark cloud. It was a sign of great calamity. Such a huge change gave Zhuo Xiaoduo a huge fright. As he thought about it, he suddenly understood. When he tested fate, especially after his last evolution, because he had the Tianji order as a medium, it didn't harm him at all. However, if he revealed it to someone, that person would suffer a certain degree of fate backlash. If it was just one person's fate, it wouldn't be a big deal. With Zhuo Changlu's high status and power, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, he had just told his father about the fortunes of too many people, as well as many future scenarios. This was tantamount to courting death, or sending his father to his death. Thinking of this, Zhuo Xiaoduo wanted to slap his own mouth countless times. Zhuo Changlu was about to ask again, but he saw Zhuo Xiaoduo's face was full of fear. He kept his mouth shut and didn't say anything. Zhuo Changlu immediately understood. He frowned and said, There's a backlash? Yes. Zhuo Changlu laughed and patted his head. He didn't ask anymore. Dad, remember to wear the heaven-mending stone I gave you in front of your chest at all times. Don't let it leave your body. Zhuo Xiaoduo reminded him seriously. Okay. Zhuo Changlu agreed. After he finished speaking, he was about to leave with his team. Zhuo Xiaoduo hurriedly sent a message to Wu Yuding. Mom, I was careless. I unintentionally revealed too much of the Tianji order to my dad, causing his own fate to backfire. I'm afraid it will be blocked. After this, you must not leave his side. You can use your own fate to help him avoid disaster. Don't let him know about this. Remember. Wu Yuding was shocked when she heard this. This matter concerned Zhuo Changlu's safety. She didn't dare to neglect it. She immediately remembered it and engraved it in her heart. Brothers, Zhuo Changlu shouted, let's go. With a loud bang, countless sounds shook the sky. Go, go, go. Let's go kill the devil bastards. Ha ha ha. Roar. Amidst strange roars, the large group of people and horses rose from the ground in an orderly manner and rushed into the sky. Then one after another, they disappeared into the sky. Their formation was so neat. Almost no one looked back, and no one said a word of farewell. However, Swishaoduo clearly saw that each of them had taken a handful of soil from the Sun-Moon Pass and put it in their arms before this. This was the place where he had fought, the land that he had desperately protected. Clang, clang, clang. In the void, the sound of a zither sounded. It was unknown who took the lead. At the Sun-Moon Pass, a dignified song suddenly sounded. Blood fell from the sky. The day you left, it was snowing. You said that your heart was home, and you said that your back was the country. The day you came back, blood fell from the sky. The quiet smile in the photo is your youth frozen in time. You protected everyone, but you abandoned me. You protected your home. You protected your country. But you won't protect me anymore. The fourth volume. Gratitude and hatred must be resolved quickly, only peace in this life. Later, I will write the summary at the end of the volume. Take a break, and then open the final volume of this book. Even if I laugh in the sky, the monarch is still a young man. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.